Chapter 156. Bang! Yi Fan soared into the sky and swung his golden fist down, smashing almost all of Ji Ren's ribs. However, this old steward was unfathomable and had an unparalleled vitality. There was no sign of him dying. Instead, he was roaring and howling. Yi Fan charged down, using the 8 steps overtaking Cicada. He was extremely fast. Every step landed on Ji Ren's body, and every time it landed, there would be a crisp, crack sound. After 8 steps, Ji Ren's bones were broken in dozens of places and his body was almost deformed. At the same time, he also fell to the ground. Yi Fan punched out one last time, and Ji Ren was sent flying like a rock. He fell to the ground like a dead dog. His methods were cruel, but Yi Fan had no mercy. In this dog-eat-dog relationship, if he was not ruthless, he would be killed. Ji Hui was determined to kill him. This old steward was here to carry out the death sentence, so he was calm and indifferent from beginning to end. He did not feel the slightest bit guilty about killing Ji Hui. Therefore, Yi Fan would not be affected by his emotions and would kill him without hesitation. Ah! Ji Ren screamed, but he was still not dead. Yi Fan's heart trembled. The other party was too powerful. If it was an ordinary cultivator, he would have lost his life already. He could not see through the opponent's profound cultivation level. Yi Fan did not want any accidents to happen, so he directly took out the golden book. The scripture's carrier, the golden page, turned into a dazzling golden light and rushed forward. It was bright and sharp, cutting the void until it became blurry as if it was about to tear it apart. Although this scripture was not a real weapon, it was more durable than the Jiang Elder's 8 trigrams mirror and could submerge in the sea of bitterness. However, the mirror, the Heaven Luo umbrella, and the pristine jade vase could not. They were blocked by the green bronze block above the sea of bitterness. In a sense, this golden page was not a weapon, but it was better than one. Chi! The golden blade was extremely dazzling. The thin golden page was comparable to the sharpest weapon, and it slashed through. Puh! Ji Ren's head was chopped off. Blood spurted out of his body like a fountain. The blood splashed out 2 meters away, while the head flew a few meters away. In the cruel world of cultivators, once a fight broke out, one would either be killed or killed. There was no such thing as mercy. Yi Fan sighed. However, he was shocked to find that the headless body was still rolling, and the head was still trembling. The fact that Ji Ren was still alive caused Yi Fan's hair to stand on end. He once again took out the golden book. If such a terrifying character could survive, just the thought of it was terrifying. Puh! The golden book rushed into Ji Ren's sea of reincarnation and directly severed the source of his divine power, splitting open this secret realm. No matter how strong the other party was, he was no longer afraid. Chi! Yi Fan did not stop there. He took out the golden book and slashed it at the trembling head. As long as he could destroy it, Ji Ren would not be able to cause any more trouble. Buzz! However, right at this moment, something astonishing happened. Ji Ren's nearly bald hair suddenly emitted a 5-colored ray of light, which immediately blocked the golden book. It was a powerful divine power that sealed the space and kept the golden book out. Amidst the 5-colored light, a thin bone hairpin exuded a misty aura. It was actually this hairpin that was releasing a mysterious power that flowed towards Ji Ren's head. At the same time, the bone hairpin shattered, and a ray of light rushed out. Ji Hui's figure emerged and shouted, "What happened?" Yi Fan's scalp tingled. Although he wanted to kill this damned old woman right now, he understood the gap between them. The legendary elders of the Ji clan were like giants in front of him. "It's you!" Ji Hui's silhouette appeared, and she was extremely shocked. "How could Ji Ren be defeated by you? He was actually at the brink of life and death. The bone hairpin I gave him before he left was broken. How is this possible?" The famed old woman of the Ji clan, Ji Hui, had a look of disbelief on her face. This was too unexpected for her. It was like hearing about a lion being bitten to death by an ant. Yi Fan quickly calmed down. Without saying anything, he took out the golden book and slashed at Ji Hui. He knew that this wasn't the real legendary elder of the Ji clan. It was just a strand of imprint. He had to destroy them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the head might recover. This is too shocking. This is against common sense. Ji Hui was still in shock as the golden book slashed through her. However, Ji Hui was unharmed. She quickly merged back together and coldly said, "Brat, you're still too young. You can't even separate the spiritual imprint. You can't kill me." She then shouted, "Ji-Ren, wake up!" Swoosh! In between Yi Fan's eyebrows, the golden lake appeared again. A small golden sword flew out. It was formed by his powerful consciousness and slashed at Ji Hui. Knowing the opponent's condition, Yi Fan calmed down. Using his powerful consciousness to destroy the imprint was the most suitable method. Ah! Ji Hui's silhouette was furious. Everything was out of her expectation. Yi Fan's consciousness was so powerful that it didn't match his cultivation level at all. Swoosh! It was like a red-hot iron bar plunging into ice and snow, melting a large part of it. Ji Hui's imprint instantly became blurry, almost destroyed. Facing the real legendary elder of the Ji clan, Yi Fan had no chance. After all, he had only cultivated for 3 years. But this was only Ji Hui's imprint, not her real body. He began his massacre. "You damned old hag, I can't kill your real body, but can't I kill your imprint?" Yi Fan was full of hatred towards this ruthless old hag. She repaid kindness with enmity and wanted to destroy his body and soul. Right now, she was the perfect punching bag. "You!" Ji Hui was furious after being insulted, but she also knew how terrifying the opponent's consciousness was. She soared into the sky and wanted to escape. Yi Fan wouldn't give her the chance. If this imprint returned to his real body, it would be hard for him to die in the future. The opponent would definitely torture him in every possible way. "Damned old hag, don't you like to chase and kill?" Yi Fan rushed up and shouted, "Today, I'll chase and kill for you to see." In the small golden lake, his divine sense materialized and shattered Ji Hui's arm. The divine consciousness sword chopped down and cut off Ji Hui's head. "Brat, you dare to humiliate me. Damn you, you want to kill me." Yi Fan rushed over and waved his golden palm. He directly slapped over and said, "Touch your dog head." Bang! The golden palm landed on Ji Hui's head. She was instantly scattered, but she quickly reassembled. Other than divine sense attacks, it was very difficult for other forces to destroy her. "You?" Ji Hui was infuriated. She had never been humiliated like this before. From between Yi Fan's brows, the golden divine consciousness rushed out again and penetrated Ji Hui's head. Then, a divine light shone in all directions and engulfed the area. He didn't have time to waste. First, he didn't want any accidents to happen. Second, he still had to deal with the half-dead Ji-Ren. Ah! Ji Hui's imprint let out an unwilling roar and shattered on the spot. It melted like a snowflake and completely disappeared from the world. Yi Fan dove down and took out the golden book, slashing at Ji-Ren again. At this moment, the head calmed down after being nourished by the mysterious light. Its eyes opened as it regained its consciousness. Its gaze was as cold as a knife as it glared at Yi Fan. "Old fart, you sure are lucky." Yi Fan activated the golden scripture and slashed forward. The surroundings were sealed. Only by killing the enemy in front of him could he escape this place. All the divine power contained in Ji Hui's imprint was transferred to Ji-Ren, waking him up completely. The head flew up and hid in the distance. Yi Fan wasn't afraid of the waves. He didn't chase after the head and attacked the headless body directly. However, something shocking happened. From the broken body, 5 figures rushed out and stood side by side, guarding the body. The first one was clad in black armor and held a giant sickle. Other than the cold light on the sickle, it was as black as ink. This person stood there like a god of death. The second one was clad in crimson armor and looked like a burning flame. In his hand, he held a blood-colored long blade that was dazzling. The third one was clad in azure armor and looked like the scales of an azure dragon. In his hand, he held a wolf fang club. His aura was heavy. These 5 people were like 5 evil gods. They exuded a demonic aura and a mysterious power flowed around them. The hidden territory of the Holy Ji Palace. Yi Fan instantly understood and sucked in a breath of cold air. It was said that cultivators in the secret realms could cultivate 5 gods and have all kinds of mysterious abilities. After cultivation, some strange things would happen. Although he had destroyed Ji-Ren's Sea of Reincarnation, the other side was still unharmed. The 5 evil gods had jumped out. The only fortunate thing was that the head couldn't merge with the body and couldn't control the 5 gods well. The secret realms are too mysterious. This kind of manifestation is just the tip of the iceberg, Yifan said to himself. There was no way back. He could only move forward. Yifan took out the golden book and activated the scripture at the same time. He mobilized the source qi in his body and prepared for the bloody battle. However, he was surprised to find that the 5 evil gods weren't as strong as he had imagined. There was a flash of golden light and one of them's arms was cut off. Ji Ren's angry roar came from the distance. He was desperate and unwilling. Ha ha! Yifan laughed and said, I understand now. Your head can't return and they can't use their power. What's there to be afraid of? Yifan rushed forward with large steps. He brandished his golden fist, and with a pung sound, an evil god was blasted apart. It turned into an expanse of dazzling multicolored light and disappeared. Jiren roared. Although he didn't have a body, his spiritual sense was even more terrifying. Whoosh! The world darkened, and a huge purple net appeared in the sky, covering everything. The overarching heaven net. Yifan was shocked. It was this net that trapped him and prevented him from leaving. Unexpectedly, the overarching heaven net didn't rush towards him. Instead, it wrapped around the head and rushed into the distance. The remaining 4 evil gods turned into 4 beams of light and rushed into the sky. This old bastard. Yifan rushed over, using his greatest strength to completely destroy his body. He waved the incomplete void palm imprint, slapping it towards the sky. Bang, 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 bang! The black hand covered the sky and smashed the 4 evil gods to pieces. He didn't dare to delay and rushed into the distance to chase after Ji Ren. Without a body, the head's divine power was limited. After all, the Sea of Reincarnation and the secret realm of the Dao Palace had been destroyed. Ji Ren was powerless and the overarching heaven net couldn't protect him. His speed gradually slowed down. Yifan cultivated the old crazy man's supreme secret technique and caught up in the blink of an eye. He knew that he couldn't let Ji Ren escape or there would be endless trouble. Old bastard, you don't have the divine power source and the 5 gods. How are you going to escape? Yifan was secretly glad that he had cut off the head first. Otherwise, if the other had connected with the body, he wouldn't have had a chance. However, it wasn't luck. He had created everything himself. His success in killing the enemy with his spiritual sense had already determined this result. Bang! Yifan waved his hand and slapped forward. Purple light flashed, and the overarching heaven net dissolved Yifan's attack, temporarily protecting the head. Unfortunately, the head was still a head after all. It had limited divine power, and if it continued to fly, it would soon be exhausted. It couldn't provide energy for the overarching heaven net, so there was no way to control it. Although the treasure was powerful, it needed divine power to activate and control it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be effective. Old man, thank you for giving me a treasure. Bang! Yifan's last attack finally crushed Ji Ren's head. The purple net floated down and was caught in his hand. It really is a great treasure. He felt Ji Hui's aura on it. It must have been given to him by Ji Hui, a famous figure of the Ji family. The net looked like it was made of interweaving starlight, sparkling and translucent. Encompassing the heavens and earth, it really is a spiritual item. Yifan felt that the overarching heaven net was much more powerful than the destroyed purple copper 8 trigram mirror and heaven net umbrella. There were faint patterns on it that were very mysterious. It seemed to be able to capture the sun, moon, and stars. He didn't stop. After erasing all traces of this place, he flew away as fast as lightning. He needed to avoid the limelight. If the famous figures of the Ji family found out, they would definitely be furious and wouldn't let him go. Chapter 157. Yifan knew that he had caused a great disaster. The southern region was extremely dangerous for him. The Ji family was huge and had many experts. They would not let him go just like that. This time, he had killed the old steward Ji Ren and destroyed Ji Hui's imprint. However, this didn't solve the problem. On the contrary, the Ji family would react even more violently. Hide. There was only one way. There was no other way. The Great Void technique was one of the essentials of the Void ancient scripture. The Ji family could not allow it to be leaked. Even if the Alcade Saint obtained it, the Ji family would find a way to take it back, let alone a small cultivator like Yifan. In these days, he had heard a lot of news. All of it shook the southern region. The battle between the Peacock King and Nangong Zhang had come to an end. The mountain range was scorched and became barren. However, the outside world did not know who was stronger and who was weaker. By the time people arrived, the two almighty beings had already disappeared. The Alcade Saint and the Ji family's saint went out together to search for the Peacock King in the southern region. They said they would kill the Peacock King. This caused a huge commotion, but they could not find any traces of him. The Bronze Palace was faintly discernible. It was about to sink into the eastern wasteland. But until now, no peerless experts had entered. The great figures were worried and were making their final preparations. It was said that the Ji family's Jianghu was heavily injured and almost killed. His whereabouts were unknown and many people were secretly searching for him. In the heavenly Jade Holy Land, the only survivor was the mad old man. He had formed a cocoon in the great darkness and was sleeping. There were many experts guarding him, but when he broke out of the cocoon, no one noticed him. He had mysteriously disappeared, leaving everyone shocked. Undercurrents were surging in the southern domain. All of the great powers were sending out powerful experts to gather information. Yi Fan smiled wryly. Right now, there were two people in the most dangerous situation in the southern region. One was Jianghu and the other was him. Jianghu's divine body had just formed. He could be considered a strong cultivator. As long as he did not meet the Peacock King, he would have a way out. As for him, his divine body had not formed yet. If he was discovered, he would be in great danger. The southern region of the eastern wasteland was not peaceful at all. Something shocking could happen at any time. The Ji clan has been passed down since the antiquity era. If you want to kill me, don't blame me for being impolite. I will spread the Great Void technique to the world. I don't believe that you dare to kill the countless people of the southern region. Yi Fan's expression was cold. He was ready to fight to the death. That was because he clearly felt that something was wrong in the atmosphere in the past 2 days. The legendary figures of the Ji family were searching for Jianghu, but even more young experts had been mobilized. They were frantically searching for Jianghu and were about to dig 3 feet into the ground. Of course, that was only the worst-case scenario. The southern territory was so vast that Yi Fan didn't believe that he could hide in a secluded corner of the mountain and still be discovered. For the past few days, he had been hiding in the wilderness, changing from one place to another. He was afraid that he had not completely shaken off his pursuers. This kind of life as a fugitive was not easy. They were always on guard, afraid that they would be discovered by the Ji family. It was not until the 7th day that Yi Fan finally stopped. He did not know where he was. He entered a deep mountain with ancient trees that covered the sun. He decided to quietly cultivate here and wait for the situation to completely calm down before leaving the southern region. It was too dangerous outside, so he could only hide for the time being. Yi Fan was ready to cultivate in peace and reach the realm of the shore as soon as possible. Right now, above his sea of sufferings, there was a divine pulse in the sky. It was crystal clear like a rainbow and was about to penetrate the sea of reincarnation. With the formation of the vein of heaven and the divine bridge in the sky, it was only a matter of time before he reached the realm of nirvana. What he needed now was accumulation. He had a pure source in his hand. It was the size of a fist and was overflowing with colors. However, Yi Fan did not intend to use it now. He wanted to save it for when he reached the nirvana realm. Such a large source contained unimaginable life essence. If it was before, it would be enough for him to advance to a realm. However, as Elder Wu Qingfeng had said, the further one cultivated, the harder it would be. Everything required 10 times the price of the beginning. This source could help him break through the realm. If he refined it when he reached the peak of the celestial bridge, he would definitely be able to enter the realm of nirvana. In the next few days, Yi Fan began to understand the various methods that he had cultivated. The Sea of Reincarnation volume of Taoist scripture was where his foundation lay. It was the source of his cultivation path. This method did not have any secret techniques or killing moves. It was completely about tapping into one's potential. Although there was no secret technique like the Great Technique of Void, it was respected as the strongest chapter to cultivate the Sea of Reincarnation for a reason. It emphasized on the foundation. Now, half of the words on the golden page had disappeared. Not much was left. Many of the star-like ancient words were completely obliterated. Vaguely, this matched with Yi Fan's realm. The words that disappeared were all parts that he had completely cultivated. He guessed that once he reached the realm of nirvana, There would be no more ancient words in this Taoist scripture. Other than the Golden Book, one of the 9 secrets, Crazy Ole's footwork, and the great technique of void were the 3 supreme secret techniques that he had mastered. In their respective fields, no other technique could surpass them. For a few days, Yifan kept trying to figure out the 3 secret techniques. He had mastered too few techniques. This was his ultimate technique to save his life. The tripod was still not formed. It needed time to be refined. However, it could be imagined that once the tripod was formed, it would be invincible. Yifan did not want to add a name to the tripod. He felt that the word tripod was enough to represent everything. The Xianhuang tripod, the qi of myriad cauldron, were not as clear as that word. Yifan drank a lot of divine spring. He calmed his mind and cultivated. He comprehended a lot. The heavenly veins above the sea of reincarnation grew again. It was just around the corner to reach the mysterious realm of nirvana. On the 9th day, Yifan held the Bodhi bead in his hand. His mind was empty. His body was like a glass lamp, pure and translucent. He was in a wondrous realm. At this moment, he was one with the rocks, the plants, and the deep mountains. His mind was at peace. He could hear the breathing of the plants and feel the pulse of the deep mountains. He seemed to be one with the heaven and earth. His consciousness took form. It was like a breeze or a cloud. He traveled through the deep mountains. His spirit seemed to have left his body. If there was a big shot here, he would be shocked. When a powerful cultivator reached the later stage, he would have to rely on comprehending Tao to increase his realm. Once he reached that level, no heavenly materials or earthly treasures would be of use. Yifan's realm was not high. However, he could stay in the Tao rhythm of heaven and earth and be ethereal for a long time. It was rare. Suddenly, Yifan sensed danger. He was one with all things. His consciousness that was traveling in the deep mountains sensed danger. In almost an instant, he saw Jihui of the Ji clan. In an instant, his divine sense returned. He opened his eyes with a swoosh and stood up from the grass and trees. This old man, how did he find me? Yifan turned into a wisp of smoke. He traveled through the forest and quickly rushed into the distance. This kid's spiritual sense is so sharp. It is really strange, Jihui muttered to herself. She waved her hand and said, "Send a message. Surround him from all directions. We cannot let him escape." Yifan was prepared. He had carved many Tao patterns here. They were recorded in ancient beast skin books. He could not comprehend them and could only copy them. Now they were finally useful. He rushed out, but the people surrounding him were blocked. "Insignificant tricks," Jihui shouted coldly. She waved her hand and with a rumble, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Rocks shot through the air. The area with the Tao patterns was erased by her divine power. Behind her, the sky was densely packed. In order to chase after Yifan and to take back the Great Void technique, they had mobilized a large number of cultivators. Jihui was not the only super expert. For a small cultivator like Yifan, there were actually several famous guests with similar statuses to Jihui. The Great Void technique must not be leaked. Yifan rushed out dozens of miles, but he was shocked. The speed he was so proud of couldn't shake off these elders. With their strength, their speed was naturally terrifying. "Young man, you have nowhere to go today. There is no way you can escape." Old woman Ji Hui's expression was cold as she transmitted her voice from behind. "How did you find me?" Yifan was puzzled. "Can my spiritual imprint be erased so easily?" Ji Hui's expression was unsightly. It was a humiliation for someone as powerful as her to have her spiritual imprint erased by a young man. She said coldly, "Even if Ziyue gave you the psychic jade, it doesn't mean you can't track me. You're audacious enough to take away my overarching heaven net." Yifan sighed. He already repeatedly refined the overarching heaven net, erasing all traces on its surface. Every strand of the net was sparkling like jade, already untainted by dust, untainted by divine senses, yet it was still found by the other party. The famous guests of the clan of the ancients were indeed unfathomable. They couldn't be measured with common sense. Yifan was like a stream of light, like lightning. The mountains and rivers retreated rapidly, but he still couldn't shake off Ji Hui and the others. The distance between them was actually shrinking. At this point, he was truly at the end of the line. There was no way out. Yifan thought about it and could only gamble. He rushed out of the mountain range and flew towards a densely populated area. This was a powerful country in the southern region. The capital had a population of no less than 1 million. The city was huge and bustling, with people coming and going in an endless stream. Yi Fan rushed to the sky above the unknown capital city and stopped. He turned around and used his divine sense to communicate with the other four. If you dare to take one more step forward, I will spread the Great Void technique to the entire capital city and let millions of people know about it. Moreover, I'll rush to the next city and announce it to the world. The Great Void technique will no longer be a secret. I don't believe you'll dare to slaughter the entire southern region. Ji Hui's expression changed. The other three also stopped in their tracks. If the Great Void technique were to be known by everyone, the consequences would be unimaginable. Didn't your Ji family want to keep it a secret? I'll let the entire southern region know. Since I have no way out, why not help the cultivators of the world? Ji Hui's expression was as dark as water. The other three were also furious. They felt that the young man in front of them was truly difficult to deal with. They wanted nothing more than to slap him to death. Yi Fan looked at them coldly and shouted, "Scram! Scram immediately!" The Ji family, which had been passed down since the antiquity era, was extraordinary. No one dared to humiliate them, but a little cultivator dared to do so. The Ji family's legendary figures, especially Ji Hui, were livid. Veins popped on her forehead, but she held it in. At this moment, the other cultivators of the Ji family caught up. Most of them were young, and the sky was densely packed with people. "And all of you scram as well," Yi Fan shouted. He had long been suppressing a bellyful of anger from being chased. There was nothing to worry about right now. He had already shed all pretense of cordiality. If he couldn't escape, then he'd fight to the death. His voice was like thunder. The entire city heard him clearly. There was no lack of cultivators below, and they all looked shocked. Aren't those the cultivators of the Ji family? Someone actually dares to speak to them like that. How incredible, comparable to the Peacock King. Who is that young man? He dared to tell the Ji family's legendary figures to scram and shocked everyone. No one dared to go forward. He's probably a powerful cultivator too. Yi Fan had always been unknown in this area, but from this day onward, he was destined to be known by everyone. He dared to challenge the authority of the Huanggu family and face the many cultivators of the Ji family alone. It was truly shocking. Didn't you hear what I said? All of you scram. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. You know what will happen. If people didn't fear death, they wouldn't be afraid of anything and wouldn't care about anything. Veins popped on the foreheads of the Ji family's legendary figures. Black mist curled around them, and their gazes were frightening. No one had ever dared to treat the cultivators from the Ji family like this. Kill him. Ancestors, why won't you let us go? The eyes of the young disciples of the Ji family almost popped out of their sockets. No matter where they went, they were seen as geniuses. Today, they were humiliated by a young man like this. They couldn't bear it at all. This was the first time Yi Fan became famous among the younger generation, but he did it in such a way. It was obvious that he would become the public enemy of the younger generation of the Ji family. Yi Fan. Ji Hui slowly opened her mouth. She tried to make her voice as calm as possible. Do you know what you are doing? Stupid old woman, shut your mouth. I have nothing to say to you. If you mention my name again, there's no turning back. Yi Fan threw caution to the wind. Now that he couldn't suppress these people, he didn't even have the slightest hope of living. Ji Hui's chest was heaving up and down. The veins on her neck were clearly visible. They were as thick as vines, and they were spasming and trembling. She couldn't remember how many years it had been since someone dared to treat her like this. Even someone as powerful as she, who had lived for so long, found it hard to swallow this anger. Ancestor, what are you waiting for? Kill him. Let us go and kill him. The younger generation of the Ji family couldn't take it anymore. Their killing intent soared to the sky. I'm only going to say one last time. All of you, scram immediately. I'll only give you 10 breaths of time. Yi Fan swept his gaze forward. Someone from the younger generation of the Ji family let out a long roar, venting his anger. Below, the cultivators in the giant city were all dumbfounded. It was obvious that Yi Fan's name would spread throughout the southern domain, and become the public enemy of the younger generation of the clan of the ancients. Ha ha ha. At this moment, someone laughed. A figure arrived in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. It was as if he had been standing in the sky above the giant city all this time and didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was a youth around 16 or 17 years old. He was delicate and handsome, with soft hair, clear eyes, and an otherworldly temperament. He was as fresh as snow on a flowering tree. It was the Peacock King. Well said. Did you hear that, people of the Ji family? Hurry up and scram. The Peacock King looked down on the southern domain. He was invincible and stood at the peak. His appearance caused everyone's expressions to change. Many people were trembling with fear. One had to know that the Peacock King's roar had directly shattered a legendary figure of the Ji family. He was unfathomably powerful. The Peacock King walked over and patted Yifan's shoulder. He looked as otherworldly as a lotus flower and didn't have the slightest bit of power or might. Everyone was shocked. What exactly was the relationship between Yifan and the Peacock King? Could it be that he had a great background? Chapter 158. The faces of the Ji clan were as ugly as they could be, especially Ji Hui. Her fingers hidden in her wide sleeves were trembling. Was there anyone in the southern region or the entire eastern barren territory who dared to yell at the Ji clan like this? It had been many years since anyone dared to do this. But a young man, only 14 or 15 years old, dared to yell at them like this. How could they endure this? Now, the Peacock King was here again. He stood next to the young man and said the same thing. This made everyone clench their fists. However, they couldn't do anything. The Peacock King was a powerful cultivator of the Monster Clan. If the Saint Lord of the Ji clan didn't come, who could fight against him? More importantly, if they forced Yifan into a corner, he would spread the Great Void technique across the world. That would be a disaster for the Ji clan. The Ji clan didn't know what to do. They were furious and didn't know what to do. Behind them, the young disciples of the Ji clan were even more furious. Yifan's face had been deeply imprinted in their hearts. He was now the #1 person on their must-kill list. He would become the public enemy of all the young disciples. Even though many of these young disciples were impulsive and hot-blooded, none of them dared to take even half a step out of line. It was completely silent. There were many cultivators in the city below. Some were just passing by and some were already here. Their mouths were dry. For so many years, the Ji clan had been high up in the clouds. People had to look up to them and no one dared to go against them. In the entire Eastern Barren territory, who dared to provoke them? Who dared to speak rudely? Which force dared to provoke them? But today, they were treated like this. Everyone was shocked and felt that it was unbelievable. They all looked up at the sky. The Peacock King fought against the Alcade Saint 800 years ago. It's understandable that he dares to provoke the Ji clan. But what is the background of that young man named Yifan? How dare he do this? Also, the Ji clan seems to be afraid of him. Could it be that he has an extraordinary background? Someone dares to provoke the Ji clan again. I wonder if he can survive. In the past, there have been some arrogant people, but they all ended tragically. No one has been able to shake the sacred grounds and the clan of the ancients. If we take a step back and endure for a while, we might not be able to make it out alive. What do you know? A person like the Peacock King has always been the one to soar above the world. If he were to cower, then he wouldn't be the Peacock King. As for that young man, I'm afraid he's the same kind of person. Perhaps he's an almighty senior. At this moment, Yifan had become the center of attention. Not only was his name remembered, but his appearance was also deeply imprinted in everyone's hearts. At this point, he couldn't keep a low profile even if he wanted to. After today, many people in the southern domain would know about him. At this time, he stood side by side with the Peacock King and was regarded as an equal by many people. Apart from the people of the Ji family, many cultivators who didn't know the details mistook him for an unknown powerhouse. Why are you still here? Didn't you hear what I said? The Peacock King's words were not harsh. Instead, they were calm and indifferent, but they caused people's hearts to palpitate. He had dominated the southern domain 800 years ago, so naturally, he was even more frightening now. Peacock King, you are an almighty senior. We know we are no match for you, but there's no need for you to be so arrogant. Ji Hui's face was ashen. She spoke slowly, but she didn't dare to say anything too extreme. Behind them, everyone was gritting their teeth. It was rare for a clan of the ancients to be so sullen when they set out. However, no one dared to act up. If they offended the person before them, it was very likely that they would all die. What was an almighty? With a flip of their hand, they could summon clouds and rain. With one hand they could cover the sky and the earth. They could stand at the peak of the pyramid and look down on everything. Once they made a move, mountains and rivers would tremble. Ji Hui waved her hand behind her. Everyone slowly retreated. Then, filled with unwillingness and anger, they charged into the distance. Take care. I won't send you off. Yi Fan transmitted his voice from afar. The great forces that had existed since the Antiquity era had existed for countless years. Being ordered to retreat by someone like this made everyone feel resentful, but they had no choice but to retreat. Otherwise, there would only be one result waiting for them. They would all be slaughtered. If the Peacock King wanted to kill them, he would not show them any mercy. He didn't make a move right now because he had his reservations. If he started a massacre, he wouldn't care about the consequences. If that happened, all the demonic beasts in the southern domain would be in danger. The Ji clan would definitely do everything they could to wipe them out and turn this place into a river of blood. In the huge city below, everyone looked at each other. The Ji clan had retreated. Everything that happened today would definitely spread throughout the southern domain. Not bad. You have some guts. The Peacock King turned around and looked at Yi Fan. He laughed out loud. Yi Fan found it hard to laugh. He had cut off all means of retreat and was ready to fight to the death for a chance of survival. However, the Peacock King had arrived. Even though he had resolved his current crisis, in the long run, his situation was not good. Remember that the Peacock King was an almighty of the demonic beasts. If he acted like this, not only the Ji clan, but even the Wavering Light Holy Land would not be kind to him. Thank you for your help, Senior. Yi Fan stepped forward and bowed. It's nothing. Don't mention it. The Peacock King smiled and said, I don't think you have anywhere else to go. Why don't you come with me? At the moment, Yi Fan really had no other choice but to go with the Peacock King. Otherwise, if the Ji clan turned around and returned, the same mistake would happen again. 10,000 rays of multicolored light and 1,000 streaks of auspicious colors formed a misty path that quickly spread across the horizon. The Peacock King ascended it with him and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. After they left, the huge city below was in an uproar. Many cultivators flew into the sky. What had happened today was too shocking. In the distant sky, the Ji clan clenched their fists tightly. Some people roared to the sky to vent their anger. In the Xianxia mountain range of the Ji nation, there was a mountain range that had been scorched and barren. Not long ago, the Peacock King had fought Nan Gongyin here, turning this place into a barren land. Yi Fan didn't expect that the Peacock King's place of seclusion was in the depths of the Xianxia mountain range. After leaving the scorched land, they traveled another 500 kilometers and arrived at their destination. In front of them, the mountain range was steep with strange peaks. However, it couldn't be considered beautiful. Many clouds and mist lingered in the air. There were many lakes, mountain streams, and waterfalls everywhere. Not far away, there was a low stone mountain. It was very inconspicuous and looked bare with only a few vines winding around it. The Peacock King reached out and pointed. Stars appeared in the sky. A blue sky pressed down and a gentle light flowed down. Suddenly, a door appeared on the stone mountain. Yi Fan walked forward and followed the Peacock King. They walked through a dark passage. Not long after, there was a bright light in front of them. The fresh scent of plants drifted along with the wind and the melodious chirping of birds entered their ears. A completely different world. This was a picturesque world of fragrant flowers and chirping birds. The plants were verdant, the lakes were clear, and the rivers were like jade ribbons. In the distance, the mountain range was faintly discernible. This was a lively world. This was a space of its own, isolated from the outside world. It had a radius of 50 kilometers and everything was fresh and natural. Are you satisfied? The Peacock King asked with a smile. Senior's willingness to take me in is already a great kindness. I am very satisfied. This space was left behind by the ancient sages. When I found it, it was already badly damaged and on the verge of collapse. Later on, it was restored to this scale. The ability to create a space was astonishing. Yi Fan couldn't help but yearn for it. You can stay here for the time being. There are still some old friends here. After settling Yi Fan down, the Peacock King left the space, saying that he was going to pick up an old friend. This space was like a pure land. All kinds of animals were not startled by humans. The 5-colored deer walked leisurely on the fragrant grass, the red-crowned cranes circled above their heads, and a white rabbit actually scuttled into Yi Fan's bosom. This made him not know whether to laugh or cry. His residence was very tranquil. The wooden house was natural and elegant with many vines winding around it. There were no tall plants in the surroundings, and the grass was verdant and smooth. In front of the wooden house, there was a lake. It was so clear that the bottom could be seen and it looked translucent. It could be said that the scenery was very beautiful and suitable for cultivation. Here, Yi Fan's heart was at peace and he felt the taste of nature. After being continuously pursued for days, Yi Fan came to such a peaceful and auspicious pure land. He felt that breaking through the realm here was just around the corner. Not long after, Yi Fan saw a familiar person. It was the demon race's beauty, Xianxia. It could be said that he had met an old friend. She was as sexy and charming as before. Her devilish figure rose and fell gracefully, and it was very tempting. I really didn't expect to meet you here. She smiled very sweetly, and there was a red mole between her eyebrows, sparkling and translucent. Jianghu was also here, but she was already in seclusion. Last time, they lost many people, and only a few elites escaped to this place. Xianxia came closer and pinched Yi Fan's cheek. Her voice was magnetic as she said, "You really have guts to force out the demon god's sacred heart. How did you do it?" Yi Fan retorted without holding back. He lifted her chin and said, "It ran away on its own. What does it have to do with me?" "You little thing. You are full of secrets. How did you come here?" Xianxia pushed his hand away and asked with a smile. "I was brought back by the Peacock King." Yi Fan didn't hide it. Not long after, Xianxia left and only appeared again 3 days later. "Little thing, the disturbance you caused is really not small." Xianxia brought a lot of news. As expected, the confrontation between Yi Fan and the Ji clan's legendary figures had spread in this area. Some people had already ranked him together with Ji Haoyue, Yao Guang Saintis, Hua Yunfei, Yan Ruyu, and Li Yuyu. Although his cultivation and background were not clear, his reputation was definitely not weaker than those people. The confrontation with the Ji clan's powerful figures shocked many cultivators. After hearing these news, Yi Fan was speechless. He knew it was even more dangerous now. "I am really curious why the Ji clan mustered such a large force to hunt you down." No matter how Xianxia asked, Yi Fan didn't say anything. He dodged everything and pushed the blame onto them. "Isn't it because I was with you last time and they hated me? Speaking of which, I am about to die because of you." Speaking of which, Yi Fan asked about Pang Bo's recent situation again. "Don't worry. He is not in any danger." Xianxia didn't want to talk about this topic. For the past few days, Xianxia appeared at the wooden house from time to time. Unfortunately, she didn't get any information. In this space, the night was not dark. It was hazy, as if moonlight was sprinkling down. Splash! Water splashed up. In the small lake in front of the wooden house, Xianxia broke out of the water like a mermaid. Her black hair swayed and sparkling water droplets danced in the air. "What are you looking at, little brat?" Xianxia laughed. Her skin was smooth like jade as she dared to provoke him in the water. Yi Fan sat on the shore and felt that it was very pleasing to the eye. He replied, "I am looking at an evil spirit bathing." "Hee hee." Xianxia laughed. Her beautiful body was faintly discernible in the water. She said, "According to reliable sources, you seem to have obtained a secret technique from the Ji clan. That is why they are chasing after you. Is that true?" Yi Fan was shocked. If the outside world knew about this, not only would he have to face the Ji clan's pursuit, the other major powers would also be eyeing him covetously. A seductive laughter traveled over. Xianxia broke out of the water. The mist was hazy, and her pure white body could be faintly seen. With a turn, she quickly put on a dress and walked over on the water. She had the body of a devil, the face of an angel, the neck of a swan, the waist of a slender woman, and the legs of a jade. Her figure swayed gracefully, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. At this moment, she could be said to be a stunner. Her shoulders were exposed, and her dress dragged on the floor. She was extremely alluring. Her arms were as white as snow, and they shone with a bewitching luster. Her body was faintly discernible as she walked over. "Are you still not going to tell me the truth?" She stretched out her jade-like arms and stretched out her slender fingers to support Yifan's chin. She licked her rosy lips, looking very sexy. Her voice was so soft that it made one's body go numb. "There is really nothing to say. You are thinking too much. Also, don't try to use honey traps on me. Otherwise, you will suffer a double loss and not get anything." Qin Yao's figure was tall, and her waist was slender. Her twin peaks were perky, and her jade-like legs were long and slender. She laughed and said, "What does a little thing like you know? Since you said it, then I have nothing to worry about. What do you want?" Qin Yao's large eyes flashed with light as she asked provocatively. As a modern person, Yifan was no longer a shy and pure young man. Since the other party was provoking him, he was naturally not afraid. He hugged Qin Yao's waist and felt her warmth. He was extremely aggressive and said, "In order to prove that I am a man and not a brat, I can only start a massacre today." Chapter 159. Qin Yao chuckled. Her voice was like the sound of a bell. She struggled slightly and broke away from Yifan's arm. However, she did not hide far away. Instead, she continued to extend her hand and lifted Yifan's chin. "Start a massacre?" Seeing her so daring, Yifan laughed. "If you are not afraid, what should I be afraid of? Little brat, you are too young." Qin Yao pinched his cheeks and smiled charmingly. "Seems like I really have to prove." Yifan pushed her hand away and walked forward. Qin Yao floated away. Her back was graceful and graceful. Her laughter echoed in the night sky. In the end, she escaped. She was not really that open. "Be careful, don't fall into the lake." Yifan laughed loudly. This seductress was indeed a beauty. She was very charming. She most likely wanted to get information from him and find out what secret art the Ji family had lost. Time passed quickly. A month had passed in the blink of an eye. Yifan cultivated in peace. The veins of heaven in his body became thicker and more crystalline. They turned into a divine bridge that stretched across the sea of bitterness. He felt that he was really close to the shore. Maybe in a few days, he could use that source and enter the next realm in one go. During this process, his consciousness was sharp. His life essence was strong. His body climbed to its peak. Everything was going smoothly and developing in a good direction. Yanruyu had always been in seclusion. No one came to find him to nurture the demon emperor's sacred heart. They must have sensed something. The Peacock King's old friend had a great background. He was a powerful demon from the North region. He was called the Green Flood Dragon King. He crossed the void and came here. After entering this space, he had never shown himself. This made Yifan very excited. The other came from the North region. If he traveled with him when he returned, wouldn't all his problems be solved? He could not stay in the South region anymore. The best choice was to avoid the Ji family and go far away. The Green Flood Dragon King brought a lot of news about the North region. Although he did not show himself, the news had already spread. Currently, the northern region wasn't calm either. Just last month, someone saw moonlight above Origin Ancient Mine like water, converging into a river, flowing into the ancient mine. There were even people who swore that they saw inauspicious creatures with sinister appearances. They moved about Origin Ancient Mine's vicinity, making one's heart pound with fear. There were also people who said they'd personally seen humanoid lifeforms appear in the sky above Origin Ancient Mine, and they called upon the wind and rain, blotted out the sky, and caused the stars and moon to dim in comparison. The most shocking thing was that within Origin Ancient Mine's life-restricted region, there was a voice that sounded like the sounds of nature, making one feel intoxicated. Several people heard it with their own ears. As for what exactly was in Origin Ancient Mine, it had already been many years, so no one could say for sure. Perhaps only the Jianghu family, Jade Lake Holy Land, and other great powers that had existed for a long time had some ancient records that could be inquired about. Over the past month, Qin Yao had appeared from time to time. Her words and actions were as bold as ever. She was the one who gave Yifan all the information. "You're saying that the Green Flood Dragon King wants to invite the Peacock King to the northern region?" "Not bad. What is the matter?" Yifan asked in confusion. "I'm not sure either. However, recently, the Wavering Light Holy Land and the Ji family seemed to be making preparations as well. They might send people over. Qin Yao didn't know the details either. Yi Fan revealed a thoughtful expression. Something was definitely going to happen in the northern region. How is the southern region right now? Yi Fan was quite concerned about the outside world. He wanted to know what the Ji family was doing. Even though the southern region is in turmoil, it's about to calm down. Ji Haoyue barely made it out alive, but he still managed to escape back to the Ji family. Qin Yao seemed to be quite regretful. The Peacock King's eldest disciple chased after Ji Haoyue for half a month. However, his divine body was still a divine body after all. He faced certain death situations several times, but he always resolved them and escaped. However, it also injured his vitality greatly. Without a year or two of time, he wouldn't be able to recover. Apart from this, the Wavering Light Holy Lord and the Ji family Holy Lord mobilized large forces to search for the Peacock King, wanting to kill him. Unfortunately, the Peacock King wasn't a hot-blooded youth. He ignored them, giving them strength, but they couldn't swing their fists. Of course, the most impactful thing was still the Bronze Immortal Palace. The mystic yellow Immortal Palace had sealed the palace door, and it was already slowly sinking into the ground. Many important figures had gathered there, but from start to finish, no one dared to rashly enter. The aura of the Bronze Immortal Palace could still be sensed. Those people were still pacing back and forth. Rumor has it that they want to lure out the crazy old man and have him lead the way. It's a pity that the crazy old man never showed up. Those big shots can't make up their minds. I'm sure that someone will enter in the end. Yi Fan said. If their lifespan hadn't reached its end, the peak figures wouldn't rashly enter. After all, since ancient times, the Bronze Immortal Palace had devoured many peerless experts. Those who had truly abandoned everything and dared to enter were all old figures who were about to pass away in meditation. At the crucial moment, they would definitely fight. The graveyard of the strong. Who knows how many heroes will fall? Qin Yao was also somewhat rueful. She knew that there would definitely be important figures of the monster race going there. Yi Fan's expression was a bit odd. He was the one who revealed the secret of the Bronze Immortal Palace. If there really were important figures who fell, it would be related to him. However, he didn't feel guilty. Everyone knew what kind of place the Bronze Immortal Palace was. Speaking of which, he had also given hope to those characters whose lifespan was about to end. Not long ago, the Peacock King fought against Nangong Zheng. Who was stronger and who was weaker? Yi Fan really wanted to know the result of that battle. It was only an intense battle for 2 hours. How could the victor be decided? They aren't mortal enemies, so there's no need to fight to the death. Qin Yao's bare feet stepped on the pebbles in the lake. A cool breeze blew over, and her dress fluttered in the wind, outlining her alluring figure. It was extremely alluring. Nangong Zhang must have gone to the Bronze Immortal Palace, right? Yi Fan asked. Yes. According to the Peacock King, Nangong Zhang only has less than 100 years left to live. He doesn't want to sit and wait for death. He wants to use his 100 years to fight for peace. Isn't it to fight for a lifetime of immortality? Yi Fan revealed a curious expression. Since ancient times, how many people have become immortals? The Peacock King said that Nangong Zhang wanted to calm his immortal heart and didn't want to wither away in the mortal world. Maybe he felt that only the Bronze Immortal Palace was the best place to bury his remains. Hearing this, Yi Fan sighed. To have cultivated to such a level yet to have such sorrow, it really made one sigh. Is the Ji clan still searching for my whereabouts? This was the question Yi Fan was most concerned about. No, everything is very quiet. Qin Yao shook her head. That's strange. Yi Fan didn't understand. You've been rescued by the demonic race. Even if they want to cause trouble for you, they'll have to go through the Peacock King first. Qin Yao smiled. Don't tell me you want them to keep searching for you? I just feel like they won't give up. Yi Fan had a bad feeling. Ji Ren once said that even if the Alcade Saint obtained the Great Void technique, they would find a way to take it back. We are going to the North region. Do you want to come with us? Qin Yao's eyes glowed and her red lips shone. She looked very sexy and charming. She chuckled. If you want to prove that you are a man, if you want to start a massacre, you can go to the North region. In a few years you will have grown up. I am a man now. Yi Fan asked in a serious tone, Are you sure that the Peacock King wants to go to the North region? He already promised the Blue Dragon King and has been preparing to open the gate. Qin Yao's expression turned serious. The Peacock King has a bad feeling. He feels like something big is about to happen and has decided to bring the descendants of the great emperor to the North region. Yi Fan was very excited. He was finally leaving the South region. He could finally get rid of all these troubles. Crack! Just then, the space shook violently and screams came from afar. What is going on? Yi Fan stood up. Bang! An even heavier sound rang out. This space had actually been torn apart by someone. In the sky, a huge crack extended far into the distance, and two figures descended like gods. Qin Yao's face turned pale. Those who dared to barge into the Peacock King's seclusion were not ordinary people. The two came together and it was easy to guess that they were two saint lords. The two were wrapped in a hazy light and their faces could not be seen clearly. They were like gods descending on the earth, making people feel fear and have the urge to kneel down. Alcade Saint and the Ji Clan's Saint. Yi Fan's expression changed. He guessed that it must be these two. Kill! Suddenly, battle cries shook the heavens. Countless figures appeared just outside the great crack, densely packed as they charged in. Alcade Saint, Ji Clan's old man, you finally came to find us. The Peacock King let out a loud roar and soared into the sky like an unsheathed sword, silencing all the shouts of war. Apart from the Alcade Saint Lord and the Ji family Saint Lord, everyone else couldn't help but back off. Facing the supreme being who had shocked the entire southern region 800 years ago, they felt fear and were stunned by his terrifying aura. Peacock King, your cave is indeed well hidden. 800 years ago, I couldn't find it. Today, I finally got what I wanted and attacked. The Alcade Saint held his hands behind his back and a halo covered his body. He was like a god that people couldn't look at directly. Peacock King, you have provoked us again and again. Do you really think that you are invincible in the South region? The Ji Clan Saint stood high in the sky as if he was in the 9th layer of heaven. He looked down on the common people and said, "Let's end this today." How majestic. It seems like you want to kill me here today? The Peacock King laughed and said, "Man proposes but God disposes. I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Do you think there is no one in the monster race?" A shout sounded and the entire space shook. A middle-aged man with a majestic aura charged into the sky and stood shoulder to shoulder with the Peacock King. "Who are you?" the Alcade Saint asked. "Green Serpent King." The green-clothed middle-aged man's voice was like thunder. Hiss. Many people in the back took in a cold breath. The Green Serpent King wasn't unfamiliar to them. He was a powerhouse of the monster race in the North region. So what if I have one more person? Sacred Lord Yao Guang stepped forward, and 108 rings of light surrounded him. Each ring of light was crystal bright, and it was as if 108 great worlds were faintly discernible. Every step he took would cause the space around him to collapse. It was as if a god king was patrolling the sky. The Ji Clan Saint Lord had merged with the Tao of space. He was like a lonely universe or a boundless starry sky. He gave off the feeling of emptiness and eternity. It was as if he was standing in the starry sky of the ancient netherworld. Yi Fan felt that the situation wasn't good. He was filled with disgust towards these people. He had just settled down and his peaceful life was broken again. His future was unknown, and it was hard to predict whether he would live or die. The newcomers didn't come with good intentions. There were as many experts as the clouds. Apart from many famous figures, he actually saw the Alcade Saint, Hua Yunfei, Li Yuyu, and others. One could imagine how much power they had used. Even some young elites had come to fight. Chapter 160. What should we do? Two saints have come here together. There's no way this will end peacefully. Qin Yao was frowning, but she still had her own charm. The only thing she felt fortunate about was that the Green Dragon King was here. Otherwise, the Peacock King wouldn't be able to do anything alone. "Qin Yao, hurry and leave or it'll be very dangerous," Yi Fan whispered. "Come with me," Qin Yao urged. "I'm afraid I won't be able to leave today. Even the Peacock King can't protect me." Yi Fan was very calm. There was no fear or panic. Since the Ji Clan had said that even if the Wavering Light Saint obtained the Great Void technique, they would find a way to take it back, there was no reason for them to let him go. He would definitely be the main target of the search. Even the Ji Clan Saint had appeared. The Peacock King couldn't protect him. Taking him away was equivalent to taking away a part of the ancient void technique. What secret technique did you learn from the Ji clan? Xianxia asked. Don't ask. If you know too much, the Ji clan will also hunt you down. Go now or it'll be too late. Xianxia grabbed his wrist and said, Let's go together. You don't have to do this. Yifan shook his head. You go first. I have my own plans. Seeing his firm refusal, Xianxia turned around and looked at him. She smiled sweetly and said, You have to be careful. You must survive. If you want to go on a killing spree, you must grow up safely. More and more people appeared in this space. Not only the cultivators from the Ji clan and the Wavering Light Holy Land had arrived, but even the cultivators from the Taishan sect and the Xiaoyao school had arrived. This was an unimaginably powerful force. The densely packed figures occupied more than half of the sky. They had come to surround and kill the Peacock King. If the Green Dragon King wasn't here, the Peacock King would probably have died. Even so, the situation was not good. The Ji clan's holy lord merged with the void. The silence was like the great Tao. The emptiness was like the universe. His voice seemed to come from the eternal unknown, ethereal and deep. Peacock King, before we end things, I want someone from you. Yifan didn't need to think to know that the Ji family's holy lord was talking about him. Just as he had expected, someone as powerful as the Ji family's sacred leader personally mentioned his name. If it was any other cultivator, they would definitely feel honored to be mentioned by such a powerful figure. However, Yifan didn't even have the mood to cry. This kind of naming was equivalent to killing. Are you sure you want me to hand over this youth? The Peacock King asked meaningfully. Of course. When the Ji family sacred lord said these two words, his voice reverberated. In the depths of the space, many monster race cultivators couldn't stand still and almost fell to the ground. The Peacock King sneered as he scanned the crowd before him and said, Don't think that your Ji clan has so many experts that no one can compete with you. If you kill him, I dare say that there will be big trouble. As soon as he said that, not only were the people from the Ji clan shocked, even the other cultivators were shocked. Alarmist talk. In the distance, a legendary elder of the Ji family shouted in dissatisfaction. Yifan, come here. The Peacock King beckoned. Yifan could only rush into the sky and stand before the Peacock King. He didn't know what the Peacock King wanted to say. At this moment, he felt countless murderous intents rushing at him. Most of them came from the Ji clan. The Peacock King laughed out loud and his words were shocking. He said, If you kill him, your so-called foundation may not work. Unless your Ji family has a divine king who didn't die and crawled out from his grave, or else. Hee. Was there such a person in this world? Daring to fight against the Ji clan. No one believed it. Because it was impossible to tell just how unfathomable the Yaoguang Holy Land and the Ji family were. Yifan, show me your footwork. The Peacock King's handsome face carried a smile. Now, Yifan naturally knew what he should do. He had to use the tiger's skin. Immediately, he left behind a series of afterimages in the sky as he displayed the footwork that the crazy owl taught him. The saint of the Ji clan didn't say anything. He stood there quietly and didn't say anything. The saint of the Yaoguang Holy Land was surrounded by 108 rings of light. It was as if many worlds appeared around him. He was like a divine king as he calmly asked, Young man, who taught you this footwork? Big brother Crazy Owl, Yifan answered calmly. Hearing this, the Peacock King almost stumbled. He cursed inside. This brat was too much. Even if he met the Crazy Owl, he had to respectfully call him senior. The saint of the Yaoguang Holy Land was surrounded by the rings of light and his face couldn't be seen. However, from his silence, one could guess that he was speechless. The saint of the Ji clan didn't react at all. He merged with the air and disappeared. Who is this crazy old man you are talking about? A Ji clan elder asked. A crazy old man. People say he's lived for 6,000 years. Yifan calmed down completely and said, My big brother is a bit pitiful. He's not in his right mind and often loses himself. Mother ****. Even the Peacock King was speechless. This brat kept calling him big brother. How could others endure this? That was a legendary character from 6,000 years ago. My big brother is sad. My big brother can't forget his past. My big brother, Yi Fan spoke to himself, not caring about the feelings of the others, his mouth full of nonsense. In the end, the Peacock King couldn't take it anymore. He sent a message to Yi Fan. "Brat, are you addicted? You keep calling him crazy old brother. I think many people want to strangle you to death. You're full of nonsense." A Ji clan elder couldn't help but scold. "Who is this crazy old man? You don't know your place. If you don't believe me, then I have no other choice." Yi Fan shrugged. He then used a mysterious footwork and retreated. This made people even more speechless. Yi Fan was using his actions to prove his relationship with the crazy old man. In fact, many people already knew that Yi Fan was related to the crazy old man. However, no one would believe that the crazy old man was his big brother. This brat was obviously talking nonsense. "Brat, don't think you're safe. The crazy old man is crazy. No one dares to provoke him in the open, but once things get chaotic, someone will definitely try to kill you." The Peacock King secretly transmitted his voice. Did the Ji clan really not know about this before? They had tried to kill you before, so they must have known. They didn't point it out because they wanted to pretend they didn't know. Yi Fan's heart trembled. He had also guessed this. He was still in a dangerous situation. The only thing that reassured him was that the two Saint Lords wouldn't directly attack him. "Big brother crazy old man said that he will come to find me in the near future," Yi Fan said. God damn it. Many people wanted to say these words to him. At this moment, Saint Alcade and the Ji clan Saint Lord completely ignored him. They treated him like he didn't exist. The Ji clan Saint Lord shouted, "Peacock King, you dare to provoke my Ji clan. Today, you won't be able to escape." At this point, he could only rely on his own strength. In the void, he simply and directly sent out a palm strike. With a loud rumble, the space created by the ancient sages cracked and was on the verge of collapse. At the same time, the Alcade Saint stepped forward and shouted, "Peacock King, you escaped 800 years ago. Don't even think about leaving today." The Peacock King laughed. "I will soar above the world. Who can stop me? Who can stop me?" His black hair fluttered in the wind as he walked forward step by step. The union of man and nature emitted a strange pulse. Poof, poof. At this time, behind the two Saint Lords, people exploded and turned into mists of blood. They were all killed by the Peacock King's footsteps. Almost in the blink of an eye, over 100 cultivators were smashed into smithereens without even realizing it, leaving only a mist of blood floating in the air. The demon race's mighty figure's first appearance had stunned everyone. At the same time, the Green Serpent King and the Peacock King faced off against the two Saint Lords. "Kill!" Shouts shook the sky. The battle had completely erupted. Without a doubt, this was going to be a bloodbath. The Peacock King and the Green Serpent King didn't run away. They wanted to fight for a chance of survival for the Yao race cultivators here. After blocking the two Saint Lords, they would be surrounded by many famous figures. Yi Fan turned around and ran. Now that Big Brother Crazy Ol was useless, many people probably wanted to kill him during the chaotic battle. The only fortunate thing was that the two Saint Lords didn't personally take action. They let him leave the center of the area and didn't surround him. "Yi brat, stop right there." Behind him, several hundred people were chasing after Yi Fan. They were all young disciples of the Ji family. Last time, Yi Fan was fearless and shouted at the people of the Ji family to scram. Now, he had become the public enemy of all the young disciples of the Ji family. How could he fight against hundreds of people chasing after him? A mouthful of spit from each person was enough to bury him. Yi Fan ran away without a trace and couldn't fight them head-on. "Yi brat, don't run if you have the guts. F***CKU, don't chase me if you have the guts." Yi Fan replied without any change in expression and increased his speed. "Little thief Yi, stop right there. I'll let you go 100 rounds and I'll still kill you." A female disciple of the Ji family shouted. "Don't chase me, you're too ugly. I'm too lazy to fight with you." Yi Fan didn't forget to tease them as he ran. Some of the female disciples were furious, but they really couldn't catch up to Yi Fan. That mysterious movement technique was something they couldn't even hope to catch up to. "Little thief Yi, you're the public enemy of the young generation of the Ji family. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, we'll kill you. You guys haven't woken up yet? How dare you speak such nonsense? Hurry up and go back to sleep." After that, Yi Fan didn't dare to speak anymore. Those who shouted were all disciples of the Ji family, who didn't have very high cultivation. He got rid of them all, but many people didn't say a word and actually chased after him. There were no less than 10 people. Ji Hui, you damned old hag, you're really like a ghost that won't go away. Yi Fan discovered to his surprise that Ji Hui and several other legendary experts had personally chased after him. Ji Hui's expression was ashen. She didn't say a word and chased after him relentlessly. Now that the Peacock King didn't stand out, she didn't believe that Yi Fan could still escape. A tender laughter came over like small pearls falling on a jade plate, crisp and pleasant to listen to. The voice was very delicate and gentle. Little Yi Fan, don't run anymore. Big sister will protect you. Yi Fan turned around and discovered a tall and extremely sexy girl with a blue moon above her head. Her jade-like feet stepped on 5-colored lightning as she chased after him unhurriedly. She wasn't any slower than the legendary experts. She wore a green dress and was extremely alluring. Her skin was tender and snow-white. Even though she was chasing after him, she was still extremely flirtatious. Her large eyes were like water, and she was extremely charming. Her pearly white teeth bit her red lips, adding a bit of charm to her appearance. Who are you? This servant is Ji by you. Her smile was very sweet and didn't contain any killing intent. F***ck, so it's you. Yi Fan's heart trembled. This sexy girl even dared to kill her own little sister. She was definitely a ruthless person. At this moment, Yi Fan discovered that Hua Yunfei had also chased after him. He was like a nimble cloud as he floated over from behind. His blue robe fluttered in the wind, appearing otherworldly and noble. At the same time, he also discovered the Yao Guang Saintess. She was like a divine lotus that had just bloomed. Her skin was sparkling and translucent, and her jade-like body radiated a rosy glow. She had a beauty that could outshine the moon and put flowers to shame. Her white robe fluttered in the wind like a fairy flying down from the moon palace. Yao Guang Beauty, why are you chasing after me? The Yao Guang Saintess was extremely beautiful. Her eyes were filled with ripples as she smiled sweetly. All the flowers would lose their splendor. She transmitted her voice. Little brother Yi, why are you running? Come with me to the Yao Guang Holy Land. No one can do anything to you, not even the Ji clan. Chapter 161. The Ji clan was chasing Yi Fan because of the Great Void technique, but the Yao Guang Saintess and Hua Yunfei were also chasing him. This was not a good sign. Soon, he also found the most outstanding disciple of the Xiaoyao clan, Li Yuyu. She was following him like a wisp of smoke. At the same time, he saw a dozen familiar figures. They were all the young heroes he had seen in Taishan last time. Other than that, there were even more strange figures that he had never seen before. They were chasing him from afar. Now, he was in big trouble. The Ji clan wanted to get back the Great Void technique, and the other forces had ulterior motives. They also wanted to get a piece of the pie. Yi Fan felt that the road ahead was unknown. It was hard to tell whether he would live or die. It would be difficult to get rid of these people. Little brother Yi, come with me. In this area, only the Yaoguang Holy Land can protect you, the Yaoguang Saintess said telepathically. Her voice was soft and had a hint of charm. Yi Fan wanted to go crazy and join the Yaoguang Holy Land. He wanted to announce the Great Void technique and cause a conflict between the two forces. But this was like a moth flying into a flame. He was in a dangerous situation. Everyone thought of him as Xuanzang. Just as he was distracted, light appeared under the feet of the Yao Guang Saintess. With each step, a golden lotus appeared. Like a willow in the wind, she moved her body and caught up. Yi Fan's eyes were wide open. He tried his best to increase his speed. This beautiful Yao Guang Saintess was too magical. She almost surpassed him. She laughed like the sound of nature. The Yao Guang Saintess stretched out her arm. Her slender fingers seemed to have a strange power. They brushed toward Yi Fan's back. Even though they were separated by a few hundred meters, Yi Fan could smell a fragrant breeze. That hand seemed to be touching his back, and he could already feel the softness of that hand. He broke out in a cold sweat and shouted, Yao Guang Saintess, how old are you? Everyone was stunned. They did not understand. The Yao Guang Saintess was a little surprised. Then she laughed and said, Little rascal. Yi Fan only had one goal in doing so, which was to distract her and avoid the danger just now. The soft hand was flung away, and he continued to increase his speed. His blue robe fluttered. Hua Yunfei caught up and said, "Little brother Yi, you are a disciple of my humble peak. We are both from Taixuan. Come back with me." Li Yuyu of the Xiaoyao clan caught up as well. She could not be shaken off. "Little thief Yi, let's see who can save you today." Ji Hui's face was ashen as she closed the distance between them. No matter who he fell into, he definitely couldn't fall into the hands of this old woman. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy for Yi Fan to die even if he wanted to. He wouldn't be able to close his eyes until he tasted all the torture in the world. "Yi, don't run. I won't hurt you," Bai Bue said. "Yi of Bue," she said. "Yi you Yi," Fan said. "Bue of thunder." Bai smiled. "You of Qing." Yi Fan's heart trembled. The young experts who had chased after him had all cultivated to the third secret realm. They were no weaker than the famed experts. Looking back, other than the famous figures of the Ji clan, they were all young elites. Hua Yunfei, Li Yuyu, Bai Bue, Yao Guang Saintus. At this point, there were a total of nearly 20 cultivators chasing after him, and he was unable to shake them off. He had seen half of them before, and the rest were strangers. "Little Yi, Big Sister is here to take care of you." Ji Bue's eyes were like water. She had a sexy body and curves. The green moon above her head flew out and fell toward Yi Fan. "Beauty, we can talk in private. It's not good to do this in public." At this moment, Yi Fan shuddered. His footwork became even stranger. With every step he took, there would be a Taoist rhyme circulating around him. After a few steps, he finally broke free from the green moon. The great Jin nation was famous in the southern region. It was known by cultivators because of a fire domain in the earth realm. People did not know why the fire domain was never extinguished. It had been burning since the desolate antiquity era. It was hard to say how long it had existed. There was no vegetation on the ground and no lava underground. There was nothing to support the fire, only the fire. No one knew why it was not extinguished. Regular cultivators did not dare to get close to the fire domain. However, when top cultivators forged weapons, they would choose this place as their first choice. The fire here had a mysterious power. It could help the weapon take shape and imprint the Tao and reason. Of course, the fire domain was not a peaceful place. It was fine when it was peaceful. However, if the fire rose high into the sky, it would be extremely dangerous. Even powerful cultivators had to retreat. There were many records about this place. The oldest ones even mentioned immortals and the ancient desolate tower. However, there were only a few strokes, and they were very vague. The words were unclear. Yi Fan was already 3,000 kilometers away from the Qixia mountain range. He had come from the center of the great Jin nation to the westernmost area. He saw a sea of fire in front of him. Only when he got closer did he discover a fire domain that was 50 kilometers wide blocking his way. "Little thief Yi, there is no way out. Where can you run?" Ji Hui's face sank. Her eyes shone with killing intent. She blocked his way, no longer in a hurry to give chase. The others also stopped and blocked off 3 directions, surrounding him in front of the fire domain. They stopped and did not advance. Yi Fan originally wanted to fly through the sky and charge over. However, when he saw the others, he did not act rashly. "Damned old woman, what can you do to me? It's just a sea of fire. Do you really think you can stop me?" Yi Fan stood there, observing the other party's reaction. "The ignorant are fearless. You don't even fear the fire domain. Should I say that you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, or should I say that you are ignorant?" Seeing her attitude, Yi Fan immediately knew that this place was not friendly and that he could not trespass. "Little brother Yi, don't hesitate. Come with me. The Yao Guang Saintess will focus on training you." The Yao Guang Saintess transmitted her voice to him, outlining a beautiful future and guiding him. Ji Hui personally walked forward and slowly closed in. The other famous figures followed behind. At this point, they could not give Yi Fan any more chances. Up ahead, an expanse of flames throbbed, the temperature scorching, roasting the great earth. The outer regions were scorched, many cracks appearing on the ground. Yi Fan gritted his teeth and decided to take a risk. He slowly retreated toward the fire domain. Otherwise, there would be no way out. "Little Yi, why are you so unyielding? GBUS smiled. Her bare feet stepped on the five-colored lightning and lightly floated forward. Whoosh! Yifan rushed into the fire domain. The heat hit him in the face and the flames burned all around him. He covered his body with divine light and quickly ran, preparing to pass through another direction. What a waste of time. If you don't die today, how can we be at ease? Ji Hui moved forward and entered the sea of flames, following him like a ghost. At this moment, there were more than 10 people chasing him. The others hesitated for a moment and then followed the famous figures in. The people chasing him split into 3 directions, giving him only one path. He could only advance into the depths of the fire domain. In the blink of an eye, Yifan had entered 7 or 8 miles. The color of the flames changed from crimson to light blue. The temperature was even hotter. Even with the protection of divine power, he could still feel the heat. Everyone behind me, do you all want to become barbecue jerky? If you continue to chase me like this, even if you can watch me turn into ashes, you won't be able to escape, Yifan shouted behind him. Little Yifan, I really can't bear to see you get roasted. Come back quickly. I'll secretly make way for you. I'm not as cruel as Grand Aunt Ji Hui. I won't kill you, GBUS said secretly. Her eyes were captivating. After running for several miles, the color of the flames changed again. They turned from light blue to milky white like flowing milk. It was hazy. Yifan felt his mouth go dry. If this continued, he would really be roasted. At this point, the terrain was no longer flat. There were many huge rocks and a large stone forest. This made it convenient for him to escape. He could hide from time to time. Don't go any further. This fire domain is a place of refinement for the strong. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it is. You might be burned to ashes, Hua Yunfei said. Yifan ignored him and continued forward. After running for several miles, the 4th color of the flames appeared. They flickered with black light like underworld flames. They were frighteningly black and burned silently. Similarly, the stone forest in front of him became denser. It was strange. This kind of temperature was enough to melt the rocks, but the stone forest was not burned. As soon as Yifan stepped into the black flames, he felt his skin and flesh split open. This kind of underworld flames was extremely terrifying and made his heart palpitate. If it wasn't for the fact that his physical body was extremely strong, he would have been in danger. Even so, his entire body was burning. Behind him, Ji Hui and the others were also hesitating. Li Yuyu and the others' physical bodies were not as strong as Yifan's, but their divine power was profound. They were completely using their own cultivation to resist. Swoosh! Yao Guang's saintess rushed into the underworld flames. Her body was sparkling and sparkling. With every step she took, a golden lotus appeared. It was unknown what kind of movement technique she used, but it was incomparably beautiful. Golden lotuses bloomed under her feet. Her entire body swayed and was extremely beautiful. Little brother Yi, don't be stubborn. Right now you have no way out. Come with me. Yao Guang is your only choice. Yao Guang's saintess's body was like jade. Her white dress was extremely eye-catching in the black flames. Her sparkling body was surrounded by a beautiful aura. She smiled and said, "You can't escape at all. Even the senior masters will frown when they come here." Can the Yao Guang saintess marry? Yifan teased. If I can become Yao Guang's son-in-law, I can go with you. If you can defeat the saint master, it is not impossible. Yao Guang's saintess smiled and didn't look angry. Her celestial appearance was flawless, and her jade-like face revealed a charming smile. She said, "With your physique, you can rise up. Come with me quickly." Yifan sprinted in the stone forest. Saintess Yao Guang stepped on her golden lotus and followed him quickly. She was like a spring breeze, like a willow swaying in the wind. She was extremely gentle and beautiful, like a fairy dancing in the jade lake. Behind them, the crowd hesitated for a while before rushing into the black flames to chase after Yifan. According to the records, there were 9 layers of flames here. The 4th layer was already very dangerous. They didn't want to take the risk, but they had to chase after him. They were afraid that Yifan would successfully escape. Right in front of them, the golden flames were flashing. Yifan was a bit scared. The black flames were already too much for him to bear. If he entered the 5th layer, he was afraid that he would be completely burned. Even the sacred body of the ancients might not be able to withstand it. As expected, even Yao Guang Saintess didn't touch the golden flames. She carefully avoided them and circled around the edges to chase after him. Little brother Yi, you don't have a chance anymore. If you don't come with me, I'm afraid you will really turn into ashes. Yao Guang Saintess smiled sweetly. She reached out her slender jade-like hand to touch him. Yao Guang Saintess, I will propose to you in the future. Please go back. Yi Fan gritted his teeth and rushed into the golden flames. At this moment, he felt that his sacred body couldn't withstand it anymore. His skin was in danger of cracking and burning. He felt like he was about to turn into ashes. Divine power couldn't stop it, and the precious body couldn't withstand it either. Yi Fan was shocked. He quickly took out the pristine jade bottle and poured it into his mouth. As the heavenly spring entered his body, the terrifying feeling of turning into ashes finally disappeared a little. However, he was still in a dangerous situation. The heavenly spring was limited and couldn't last long. His body couldn't withstand it anymore, and sooner or later, he would burn and turn into ashes. Outside, everyone looked incredulous. They didn't expect that Yi Fan didn't melt and held on. Everyone was using their profound cultivation to support themselves. They could already see that Yi Fan was holding on with his strong physical body, which was really shocking. Ji Hui and the other legendary figures gathered together and made a decision. They sneered and went forward. They took out a jasper leaf and slashed at Yi Fan in the golden flames. At this moment, Yi Fan couldn't withstand the scorching heat. He felt like he was about to be smashed into pieces. His movements were very slow. Although he managed to dodge it, the jasper leaf still cut through the void around him. Yi Fan disappeared with a swoosh and entered the void. The Yao Guang Saintess was shocked. She said, "A weapon imprinted with the Great Void technique." "That's right." Ji Hui nodded and said, "Unfortunately, we can only go one way. Otherwise, we could have caught him." Another legendary figure of the Ji clan stroked his beard and said, "It's enough for him to go several miles. He will fall into the 6th fire zone. We will also turn into ashes if we go in. He will die for sure." The 6th fire zone is called the Purple Chi from the east. Many important figures forge weapons there. "I don't think he has any hope of survival," Ji Baiyu said. "Let's go. We won't be able to hold on for long in the 4th Black Hellfire." Ji Hui led the way and walked out. "What a pity." The others shook their heads and quickly left. "I don't think he will die so easily." The Yao Guang Saintess had a strange expression on her beautiful face. She stood outside the golden flames for a long time. Seeing that there was no movement inside, she retreated and muttered to herself, "What a pity." Hua Yunfei also waited quietly and listened. The fire zone was silent. Then he turned and left. In the blink of an eye, the 4th Hellfire Zone was completely silent. When Ji Hui arrived outside the fire domain, she immediately ordered for the Ji family's cultivators to stand guard here. She didn't want any accidents to happen. She even wanted to ask the big shots of the family to go deep into the 6th layer of the fire domain to investigate. The 6th fire zone was called the Purple Chi from the east. The flames here didn't look like raging flames. Instead, they looked like purple mist. It was hazy. The jasper leaf was a forbidden weapon. It pierced through the void and manifested the complete Great Void technique. It passed through several miles of space, past the area where the golden flames were, and was about to break into the purple flames. The moment Yi Fan passed through the void, he knew something was wrong. He summoned the overarching heaven net to protect himself. Then, he held the pristine jade bottle and was ready to pour it on himself at any time. The place where important figures forged weapons was not a place he could survive. The void broke. At first, only a sliver of purple chi flowed in. But Yi Fan still felt like his body was about to explode. At the same time, he felt the source energy become active. Chapter 162. The purple energy was like a blade, wishing to cut Yi Fan apart. This left him horrified. This was just a trace. "Come out." Yi Fan felt anxious, doing everything he could to circulate the all-life source energy, wishing to transfer it out. He could clearly sense that it had become much livelier. Mysterious yellow swirled, finally spreading outwards. However, it was only a small amount, covering the surface of his body. It couldn't completely protect him at all. Things were not looking good. Yi Fan's expression completely changed, activating divine force towards the overarching heaven net. He completely covered himself within, producing a cage that encompassed heaven and earth, trapping himself. Pang! The void completely split apart. That sparkling jasper leaf immediately shattered, turning into ashes, disappearing before Yi Fan's eyes. This was a forbidden artifact. Its power was great, able to display inconceivable power, but its fatal weakness was that after using it a few times, it would shatter. For example, in the ancient desolate restricted land, the three elders of Ji family, Jiang family, and Wavering Light Holy Land all grasped a forbidden artifact. After using it a few times, it would automatically shatter. Meanwhile, this jasper leaf couldn't compare to those three. After using it a single time, it would turn into powder. Strictly speaking, it could only be considered a small forbidden artifact. The void split apart. Yi Fan fell into a purple world. There were no flames, only flowing purple energy. It was hazy, but the temperature was terrifyingly high. He did everything he could to activate divine force, operating it towards the overarching heaven net. The net released star-like radiance, forming a barrier of light, temporarily blocking the purple flames. However, before he could rejoice, the barrier of light immediately caved in. The purple energy seemed to be extremely heavy, the barrier of light unable to block it at all. It burned fiercely, quickly melting away. What kind of flame is this? It can actually burn divine force? Yi Fan was inwardly shocked. If the overarching heaven net was destroyed, then he really wouldn't be able to do anything. Even though the all-life source energy was active, it didn't completely spread out, unable to completely protect him. Chi! The barrier of light caved in again, about to completely disappear. The purple mist pressed down, waves of terrifying blazing heat that made one's heart jump. It was already vaguely transmitted over. Even the Ji family's legendary figure's great treasure couldn't block the purple flames. This was the place where the big shots refined weapons. The flames that caught their eye were naturally rare treasures. Although Ji Hui's overarching heaven net was extraordinary, it couldn't compare to the treasures of great figures. It couldn't block the purple flames at all. Chi! The screen of light collapsed completely. The purple mist pressed down on the overarching heaven net, and the sparkling net immediately dimmed. Then it actually let out cracking sounds. Cracks appeared on the overarching heaven net. It was about to be destroyed under the purple flames. Yi Fan was horrified. The divine spring within the holy jade bottle flowed outwards, pouring into his mouth. Then, he turned into a streak of light, rushing in a certain direction. Right now, there was purple chi everywhere. He had no idea which side was the periphery and which side was the center of the fire domain. He had no way of distinguishing between them. Kacha! With a final crisp sound, the overarching heaven net shattered inch by inch and was completely incinerated. No matter how strong Yi Fan's body was, he was unable to endure the scorching of the purple flames. However, even though there was only a small amount of source chi seeping out, it still had a bit of effect. It flowed on the surface of his body, misty, and actually forced the purple mist to be unable to truly get close to him. However, even so, he still couldn't endure it. It was as if there were millions of blunt knives slowly cutting his flesh. The pain was unbearable. It was hard to imagine just how high the temperature of the purple mist was. Now, he was about to break apart from a certain distance. Damned source chi, why isn't it flowing out? Yi Fan roared. He quickly ran, continuously pouring divine spring water into his mouth. As long as the source chi couldn't completely cover the surface of his body, he would undoubtedly die if this continued. After rushing out several li, Yi Fan almost fell into despair. The multicolored mist lingered in front of him, and it was even more terrifying than the purple mist. Damn it, this is the center. He turned around and rushed back. Yi Fan's body, which surpassed magic treasures, was currently blood red and about to combust. The small amount of source chi couldn't completely isolate the terrifying heat. At this moment, he suddenly froze. The holy jade bottle in his hand was inferior to the overarching heaven net, so why wasn't it incinerated? He was anxious just now and completely ignored this abnormality. One had to know that a small amount of source chi flowed on the surface of his body and didn't cover the holy jade bottle, so it couldn't separate it from the purple flames. Why is it unharmed? Yi Fan felt that his flesh was about to dry up. He felt that if he ran a few more steps, he would definitely shatter with a bang, and turn into ashes. He didn't have any hesitation. He took out the holy jade bottle and put himself inside. First, I walked into the trap, then I put myself inside the holy jade bottle. Yi Fan discovered that he had actually done such an outrageous thing twice in a row. He was really forced into a corner. What exactly was inside the holy jade bottle that blocked the purple mist and left this treasure unharmed? Yi Fan entered and felt a wave of coolness. His dizziness was cleared up. Although this bottle was damaged in the forbidden ancient land, the space inside was still very vast. At the very least, it could fit a 50-meter tall hill. There wasn't much water left in the divine spring, and it floated to the side. In the other corners, there were some miscellaneous items like food and water, the bronze plaque of the Thunderclap Temple, the ancient bronze lamp, and the Vajra pestle. After searching for a while, he was shocked to find that it was the Bodhi seed. Yi Fan knew that it was a holy item. However, his first impression was that it could only help him comprehend the Tao and didn't think much of it. After all, it was just a seed. He didn't expect it to be able to resist the purple flames. He was both surprised and happy. Out of all the items he obtained from the Thunderclap Temple, only the Bodhi seed was the most mysterious. It was undamaged and had a natural Tao diagram. Yi Fan held the Bodhi seed and silently circulated his divine power to rush out of the holy jade bottle. The moment he appeared outside, the purple mist retreated and quickly rolled to the sides, opening up a pure land for him. It really is like this. Yi Fan thought of many things. In the legends of Buddhism, what was the most powerful fire? Naturally, it was the karmic fire. The fire condensed from the karma of all living beings. It could burn Buddhas to ashes and destroy the gods of the world. There was nothing that could stop it. When all the sins of the world converged together, they formed karmic fire. When Buddhas comprehended the Tao, they paid particular attention to compassion. After experiencing the burning of karmic fire, they finally achieved Tao fruit. And when he comprehended the Tao, he relied on the Bodhi tree the most. It allowed him to achieve great enlightenment and resist all kinds of karmic fire to reach perfection. Without a doubt, the sacred Bodhi tree didn't fear the karmic fire and opened up its divinity. It was the most extraordinary. Of course, in this world, it was difficult to have true eternity. Perhaps the perfection of Buddhas only represented a realm and not the so-called eternal life. The world didn't know whether Buddhas were immortals or not. After all, the Thunderclap Temple had been destroyed. Even the legendary sacred Bodhi tree only left behind a seed. It can even resist the strongest karmic fire in the world. Naturally, it won't be afraid of these purple flames. Yi Fan was very excited. The Bodhi seed in his hand made him feel more and more mysterious and extraordinary. Within a radius of 3 meters, the purple flames couldn't invade. It was peaceful. Yi Fan let out a long sigh. With such a divine seed in his body, he felt at ease. Yi Fan calmed himself down, drinking a bit of divine spring, starting to treat his injuries. In that instant just now, his body was already close to burning, suffering serious injuries. He was in no hurry to leave this place. In the southern domain, this was perhaps the safest place for him. All the major powers were looking for him. If he left and was discovered, he would undoubtedly die. Yi Fan didn't move. He sat cross-legged for 3 days and drank some divine spring water. Only then did he recover to his peak state. The great figures are indeed terrifying. How much strength does one need to refine weapons in a place like this? If it weren't for the Bodhi seed, he wouldn't be able to survive here for even a moment. He was secretly shocked. The great figures were indeed unfathomable. During this period of time, he had been constantly on the run. It could be said that he had made ample preparations. There was enough food and water in the pristine jade bottle. He could live here in seclusion for a long time. Since he planned to live here for a long time, Yi Fan began to explore the purple chi from the east fire field. He wanted to understand everything here. This place was very quiet. Purple mist swirled around. There was no sound at all. Other than the crisscrossing stone forest, there was nothing else. What's so special about these stones? Even the treasures of the Ji clan's legendary figures were destroyed, but they are still intact. Yi Fan used all his strength to split open a stone. He didn't find anything out of the ordinary. This puzzled him. In the end, he could only conclude that the fire field was connected. Even the great figures choose to refine weapons here. Perhaps I can use this purple chi to refine my cauldron. Fire was very important to refining weapons. Back in Elder Han's cave, he had used the fire spirit underground to refine a cauldron. Now, the purple fire here was many times stronger than the fire spirit. It must have an even more extraordinary effect. Yi Fan was somewhat excited. After all, the source energy here had become very active. Perhaps it could really take shape. After wandering around this place for an hour, Yi Fan looked around. He didn't find anything special. Apart from some human-shaped ashes, he also discovered some materials that had been discarded during the refining process. Those who had left their traces here were obviously important figures. The higher the quality of the fire, the stronger the weapon refined. Legend has it that in the past, there were many powerful figures who would spend half their lives collecting fire essence to refine their weapons. Yi Fan felt that this place might be a great fortuitous encounter for him. You want to kill me? Who knows, maybe you will help me. Xiao Chen already knew that there were 9 kinds of flames here. The deeper he went, the more horrifying the fire energy became. Right now, this was only the 6th floor. Many major figures chose to refine weapons here. How strong would the flames of the 7th floor be? What would the scene of the 8th floor be like? This made one's imagination run wild. As for the 9th floor, Yi Fan found it hard to imagine. There were many records about this place. The most ancient records even mentioned immortals and the ancient desolate tower. However, there were only a few vague words, and the words were unclear. Yi Fan did not know about this. If he did, he would definitely be even more excited and shocked. Xiao Chen held the Bodhi seed and headed for the 7th floor of the fire domain. Earlier, he could vaguely see a 5-colored mist that gave off frightening fluctuations. After traveling for several kilometers, the 5-colored mist was hazy. It did not look like flames at all. Instead, it was more like immortal qi. It looked very peaceful, but it made one's heart palpitate. Even one's soul trembled. Just by standing at the periphery and not entering, Yi Fan felt a burning sensation. Furthermore, this was the result of holding the Bodhi seed. Xiao Chen's expression turned sluggish. Before entering, he already saw some human-shaped ashes and some damaged items. Some major figures chose to refine weapons on the 7th floor. However, it seems to be very dangerous. Some people died in there. Xiao Chen felt a chill. Even major figures died. One could easily imagine how horrifying the 5-colored mist was. Such flames had long surpassed his imagination. I'd better use the Bodhi seed to refine my cauldron on the 6th floor. If it can take shape, I can consider entering the 7th floor to refine it. Yi Fan did not want to take the risk now. He felt that he could take it slow. If he succeeded here, he could try to draw on the fire energy of the 7th floor or even the 8th floor to refine his cauldron. The origin root of all things source qi and the extreme Tao fire source. With such a combination, I can definitely refine my cauldron. Xiao Chen wanted to refine the strongest weapon. Chapter 163. The 6th level of the fire domain was misty and hazy with purple mist. It was named Purple Qi from the east and looked indescribably noble. This color was supposed to be an auspicious omen, but in the fire domain, it represented terror. It was impossible to estimate how hot the fire energy was. It had even burned some important figures to ashes. It was extremely dangerous. Even though Yi Fan had the Bodhi seed, he didn't dare to be careless. Yi Fan looked around and finally stopped in a stone forest. This place was relatively quiet and the purple mist was thin. It was suitable for a temporary residence. Around him, rocks were strewn everywhere. Some were like crouching bulls, others like bamboo shoots. They were in all kinds of shapes. How do I use the purple flames to forge? He frowned. Did he have to guide the purple flames into the sea of reincarnation? This was definitely very dangerous. Even his physical body couldn't bear it. If he guided it into his body, it was hard to say what would happen. But if he didn't guide the flames into his body, how could he forge the cauldron? The weapon had to be forged within his body. Only then could it merge with his body. There was no other way. This was the only way to unleash its greatest power. I'll just try guiding a strand. He held the Bodhi seed and sat down. The area within 3 meters became a pure land without a single purple flame. Yi Fan placed the seed on the ground and then walked to the edge. He carefully guided the purple flames and didn't dare to absorb too much. He only used his divine power to steal a strand. Hiss hiss. At this time, the strand of purple energy started to jump. It actually ignited the divine power and quickly melted a small ball. Yi Fan was shocked. This purple energy was too strong and could even extinguish divine power. No wonder it was a threat to important figures. It was indeed dangerous. When the strand of purple energy approached the Bodhi seed, it finally stopped jumping. It was no longer harmful to the divine power and calmed down. What kind of flame is this? Just a strand of purple energy is so powerful. It can definitely cut through spirit treasures and pierce through the human body. It's really shocking. Yi Fan muttered to himself. He carefully controlled it to approach his skin and make contact with the strand of source qi that leaked out. Specks of ripples spread out. The mysterious yellow strand became much more lively and slowly flowed on the surface of his body. At the same time, the purple mist seemed to be attracted and moved in sync with it. Sure enough, there's hope. Yi Fan revealed a happy expression. Right now, everything was in preparation for refining the cauldron. Only by truly understanding the purple energy could he draw it into his body. He held the Bodhi bead in his hand and focused all his attention to fuse the purple flames with the source qi of all beings. Like a breeze blowing across the surface of a lake, ripples appeared. That wisp of myriad source qi emitted a strange fluctuation and absorbed the purple mist. Yi Fan immediately felt a wave of warmth, but it wasn't a burning sensation. It was like warm water flowing on his skin, giving him a very comfortable feeling. After the initial success, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He activated the mysterious technique recorded in the Tao scripture, allowing the wisp of source qi to flow on the surface of his body, from his fingers to his arms, then to his neck, chest, and thighs. He observed carefully. After the purple mist fused with the source qi, it was very calm. It did not struggle, and there was no sign of it wreaking havoc. Then, he activated divine force, pouring it into the all-life source energy, allowing it to merge together. It was still extremely calm, not displaying any abnormalities. This wisp of source qi flowed on the surface of his body like a warm spring breeze. It was like a gentle massage, making him feel very comfortable. From the looks of it, everything was normal, and there was no danger. Half an hour later, Yi Fan guided the wisp of mysterious yellow essence into his body. Of course, everything was carried out in an orderly manner. He first let it enter the flesh of his arm. If there was an accident, he could quickly stop it. He had to be so cautious. After all, this kind of purple flame was a threat to important figures. If he directly absorbed it into the sea of reincarnation and an accident happened, the consequences would be unthinkable. As it passed through the flesh, it was like essence was swimming. There was a trace of fluctuation amidst the warmth. Still, there was no accident. The purple qi entered his body and did not rebel. After repeated attempts, Yi Fan guided the wisp of source qi back into the sea of reincarnation and fused with the source qi. The source qi near the purple mist became lively, but because there was only a wisp of purple qi, there was no real change. At the initial stage, everything went smoothly, and there was no danger. Yi Fan decided to start absorbing more purple flames. After all, one wisp was too little, and it could not be used to refine the cauldron. In the purple qi from the east fire domain, the all-life source qi was lively, and it was easier to control. The second time, Yi Fan directly guided 3 wisps, and after absorbing the purple qi, he returned to the sea of reincarnation. After repeated attempts, Yi Fan felt that there was indeed danger, but he could control it. He should be able to use the purple qi refining cauldron. Half a day later, he sat there quietly, using divine power to guide the purple qi into this pure land. Then, he absorbed it with the source qi. Now, he gradually relaxed, absorbing dozens of wisps of mist at the same time. They followed the mysterious yellow essence back into the sea of reincarnation, gathering bit by bit. 2 days later, in Yi Fan's sea of bitterness, the all-life source qi was slightly purple and warm. However, this was far from enough. If he wanted to refine the cauldron, the fire energy had to be strong and blazing. On the 3rd day, Yi Fan increased the intensity of the fire. He sat quietly on the boulder, his body like a statue. Wisps of purple mist curled up, and the surface of his body was hazy. On the 4th day, within his sea of reincarnation, there was a ball of flame the size of a chicken egg throbbing. The purple mist continuously gathered, finally turning into a flame. The temperature was incomparably high, and even though he was surrounded by the mysterious yellow essence, waves of heat could still be felt. Now, Yifan didn't dare to draw in the purple energy anymore. The fire energy contained in that fireball exceeded his expectations. It was like a purple sun burning. Now is the time. He began to refine the cauldron. He held the Bodhi seed in his hand, sitting on the blue stone. His mind was calm, and a small cauldron appeared in his sea of consciousness. It had 3 legs and 2 handles, simple and unadorned. This was the cauldron in his heart. Everything had to be refined according to this until it took form. There couldn't be the slightest mistake or flaw. The all-life source chi surged, surrounding the purple flame. He tempered it with his heart, forging it with his spirit. His mind was highly concentrated, like a fully drawn bow. The purple flame burned, the all-life source chi hazy, containing the flame. It continuously changed shape, evolving into the shape of a cauldron. 1 day, 2 days, 7 days later, it actually released a sonorous sound, as if iron was really being forged. The sound traveled far into the distance. In the past, forging the cauldron wasn't difficult, and it could take form in half a month to a month. However, as soon as it left the green copper piece, it would immediately disintegrate, difficult to maintain. Now, after using the terrifying fire energy to temper it, it actually couldn't take form. It was as if he was polishing the world's hardest holy iron, hammering it 100 times, yet it would only turn into a lump. Yifan didn't worry, because this was how it should be. In the past, it couldn't be considered refining the cauldron, only gathering the source energy. That kind of formation was like building a tall building on a beach, destined to collapse. Now, using the best quality fire source to forge it, this was true artifact refinement. After taking form, it would become indestructible. On the 9th day, the purple flame gradually weakened, and then with a flash, it actually burned out, completely extinguished. At this moment, the all-life source chi was refined into a lump of irregular shape, far from taking form. Worthy of being the all-life source chi. Even after this type of fire energy burned out, it still couldn't take form. One has to understand that the purple flame could burn great figures to death, but using it to refine a cauldron would only make it take form, far from meeting the requirements. Yifan stood up and stretched his muscles. Then, he ate some food and drank some water. He muttered to himself, I wonder what's going on outside. Is there someone guarding the edge of the fiery field? He didn't immediately continue refining the cauldron. Instead, holding the Bodhi seed, he walked outside to take a look. After passing through multiple fiery fields, he finally arrived at the fiery field. Through the flames, he could see cultivators wandering around. Yifan hid himself and used his powerful consciousness to explore. Everything around him was clearly captured in his mind. After waiting for a long time, he finally heard someone speak. So many days have passed. Can we leave now? It's so boring here. The 6th level of the fiery field is where the great figures forge artifacts. He will turn to dust in no time. Why do we have to wait here? What an unnecessary move. Yifan silently retreated into the depths of the fiery field, no longer paying attention to those people. Right now, nothing was more important than refining the cauldron. He once again guided the purple flame into his body. He was familiar with this process. In less than half a day, he had gathered enough fire energy. The purple flame was burning hot and was absorbed by the all-life source chi. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal being hammered rang out again. He focused his mind and energy to refine the source chi, allowing it to slowly take shape. This time, it was even faster. In less than 3 days, the purple flame was extinguished. The all-life source chi is indeed unimaginable. Yifan felt that he could guide more of the purple flame into his body. Otherwise, if he gave up halfway, who knew when the cauldron would take shape? In the end, he continued to guide the flame. It gathered into a dazzling light in his body. It was as big as a fist. The all-life source chi could barely contain it. Any more and it would overflow. The purple flame burned fiercely and the sound of metal clanging rang out again. Yifan used his heart to refine and his spirit to forge. Poof! Suddenly, something unexpected happened. This time, there was too much purple flame. In the process of forging the cauldron, it overflowed from the all-life source chi. This was not a single wisp, nor was it a few dozen wisps. It was a small ball. It was as big as a longan and was as bright as the sun. It was like the concentrated essence of the sun. Yi Fan's face immediately turned pale. He was not the Ji clan's supreme elder. He was not the Alcade saint. The reason why he could forge here was because he had the Bodhi seed. Now that the purple flame rushed out, it would be a disaster. As expected, after the purple flame left the all-life source Qi, it immediately went berserk. It was as if it wanted to burn the 9 heavens and turn him into ashes. Boom! Suddenly, the golden sea of bitterness rolled up boundless waves, blocking the purple fire and covering it inside. Something shocking happened. The purple flame was engulfed by the golden seawater and was drowned in an instant. It was about to be extinguished. This! Yi Fan was shocked. He didn't think that the bitter sea, which was different from the others, would have such power to suppress the purple flame. The purple light flashed and the flame rushed back into the all-life source Qi. In the end it did not extinguish. Ha ha ha! Yi Fan laughed loudly and stood up. Using the source Qi to contain the flame was a helpless choice. He should have used the fire source to contain the source Qi. Originally, he was still worried that it would be too slow to forge the cauldron at this speed. Now, he finally had a solution. Yi Fan stood up and came to the hottest place in the purple Qi from the east. The mist there was thick like a liquid that couldn't be dissolved. There were some human-shaped ashes on the ground. It was obvious that the big shots liked this place. Here, he directly absorbed a sea of purple flame and gathered it in the sea of reincarnation. The all-life source Qi was completely contained. He used the golden bitter sea to suppress the purple flame and not let it leak. The purple flame burned fiercely in the bitter sea and continuously refined the black and yellow essence. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly. 1 day, 2 days. Yi Fan didn't know how much fire energy he absorbed. It was as if he was forging iron every day. The purple mist in this region was getting thinner. Until 3 months later, the clanging sounds finally stopped. Yi Fan no longer absorbed the purple flame. At this moment, above the bitter sea, a small cauldron took form. It was simple and natural. Its 2 ears produced yin and yang, its 3 legs stabilized the heaven and earth, and its circle contained the primal chaos. It evolved Tao and truth, and formed a body. It could contain all things. It faintly had the feeling of the beginning of heaven and earth and the natural Tao. Refining the cauldron with purple Qi had finally taken shape. However, Yi Fan wasn't satisfied. He felt that this was only a rough embryo. He wanted to refine it with a stronger fire source. He also had another idea. After refining the cauldron, he wanted to evolve profound Tao patterns inside. Only then could it become the most powerful weapon. I haven't cultivated Tao patterns, but I have hundreds of ancient characters. Each of them is a priceless treasure. Chapter 164. This really was a small cauldron that was less than an inch tall. It didn't emit any dazzling radiance or shocking fluctuations of divine power. There was only nature and grandeur. Yes, it wasn't large and could even be considered small. However, it gave off a majestic feeling. It didn't seem like a supreme weapon, but more like a mountain and river, a star domain, a world of natural Tao. The source energy of all things was extremely rare and could be considered a treasure. It was a sacred object for refining weapons and was extremely hard to come by. There was even less of a need to mention the source energy's root. It only existed in legends and couldn't be seen. Now, it had been forged into a cauldron. Yi Fan found it hard to calm down. He looked at this cauldron and liked it more and more. The black and yellow represented the heaven and earth. It had 3 legs and 2 ears and was perfectly round at the top. It displayed the Tao and reason. He operated a mysterious technique and wanted to bring out the cauldron. However, he found to his shock that the small cauldron was as heavy as a mountain and couldn't be moved. He was truly shocked. The cauldron was as heavy as a mountain. Rise! Yi Fan used all of his strength and shouted loudly. He poured all of his divine power into the small cauldron and finally brought it out. It was simple and unadorned. It quietly floated in the air like a boulder at the beginning of the world. It didn't move at all. Suppress! Yi Fan shouted softly and wanted to bring it into the distance. The cauldron that was less than an inch tall shook in the air. The various boulders beside it silently turned into fine powder. The stone forest in front of him completely disappeared. The source energy of all things refined into a cauldron is terrifying as expected. Yi Fan retrieved the cauldron. He was happy at first, but then he frowned. This cauldron was too heavy and he couldn't move it at all. It felt like he was facing a great mountain. If it wasn't refined within his body and had an inseparable connection with him, he wouldn't be able to move it at all with his true cultivation. This cauldron already had the aura of a great weapon. If it interweaved Tao and reason, there would be a day when it would turn into an extreme weapon. Yi Fan wasn't in a hurry to head to the 7th floor's multicolored flames. If he wanted to refine the cauldron, he would have plenty of time. He wanted to increase his cultivation before that. His own strength was the foundation of everything. Otherwise, even with the cauldron on him, he wouldn't be able to move it as he wished. Right now, his body was strong and his divine power was vigorous. If he calmed down and cultivated, he would definitely have a breakthrough in a short period of time. Yi Fan chose a new stone forest and opened up a cave. He held the Bodhi seed in his hand and sat cross-legged inside, starting to cultivate silently. Last time in the depths of the Xianxia mountain range, the space of the Peacock King, Yi Fan had already achieved something. He only needed to take half a step to reach the peak of the Divine Bridge. Therefore, he was confident that he could break through to the Nirvana realm here. Time passed, and Yi Fan did not move at all. He quietly comprehended, and after a month, he finally reached the peak of the Divine Bridge. He was prepared to refine that fist-sized piece of origin. But at this moment, he discovered something strange. His vision was blurry, and he couldn't see anything. It was as if he had lost his sense of direction. How could this be? He was shocked, thinking that he had fallen into a trap. However, there was no murderous aura, nor was there any fluctuation of divine power. The surroundings were quiet. He sent out his powerful divine sense and scanned the surroundings. What was shocking was that when he sent out his divine sense, all he saw was a hazy fog and nothing else. My 5 senses, my spiritual sense. Why are they blurry? What is hurting me? Yi Fan quickly calmed down and thought silently. Then he muttered to himself, could it be? He thought of a possibility, a cultivation situation that he had neglected. The Divine Bridge realm had the misfortune of being lost. The Tao scriptures did not mention it in detail, so he had never paid attention to it. All this time, when he was comprehending the Tao scriptures, he had always focused on the heart's method. He didn't care about these irrelevant words. The human body was full of mysteries, and cultivators didn't want to be trapped in the sea of bitterness. If they wanted to explore other secret realms of the human body, they had to strengthen the sea of bitterness. Only by cultivating the vein of the heavens and crossing the sea of bitterness to the Nirvana realm could one break free from this predicament. This was the Divine Bridge realm, a very crucial stage. However, the vein of the heavens grew and traversed the void. Just how far could it extend to reach the Nirvana realm? Some people would spend their entire lives unable to see through the fabrications, and would be trapped on this end of the Divine Bridge, unable to cross the sea of bitterness. This was the misfortune of being lost. In the most severe cases, one's 5 senses would be stripped away, and one's spiritual sense would be lost. One would become an ignorant and senseless cripple, which was the most terrifying. When most people formed the vein of the heavens, they would be blocked by the dense fog, not knowing where they should go. However, it was not serious. As long as one calmed down, one could pass through it without being stopped. Yi Fan's cultivation had been very smooth up until now. It could be said that there were no twists and turns. Before he reached the peak of the Divine Bridge, he had not been restricted at all. It was only at this moment that it completely flared up. Endless dense fog rushed out, and the fabrications obscured his spiritual sense, blocking his path forward. This was a serious misfortune of being lost. Crossing the sea is the Nirvana realm. A test of life and death was placed in front of him, and he had to go through it. There was no such thing as retreat, or else his 5 senses would be stripped away, and he would be completely lost. Yi Fan placed the piece of origin to the side, and put the Bodhi seed into his robes. He wanted to face it head-on, and not leave himself anything to rely on. Powerful cultivators had to pass this stage by themselves. They had to experience it personally, or else their future cultivation would be shrouded in shadows, and their spiritual sense would no longer be sharp. This was a process of questioning one's heart, and not a process of relying on external objects. From a certain perspective, although the misfortune of being lost was a kind of tribulation, if one passed it, their body and mind would be baptized, and their instincts would be awakened. Their subconsciousness would become stronger, and they would see through the fabrications and reach the source. Yi Fan closed his eyes and did not move. He was as still as a fossil, and only after half a month did he say in a low voice, "I will not be lost." At this moment in his eyes, the dense fog locked down the surroundings, and he seemed to be trapped in a cage. His mind was immersed in the sea of reincarnation, but he could only see a segment of the vein of the heavens. He did not know where he should go. The misfortune of being lost was known as a test of life and death, and it was not a lie. Many geniuses would mention this stage when they looked back. Yi Fan was really in danger. His 5 senses became more and more numb, and his spiritual sense was about to disappear. His entire body seemed to be sealed, and he could not hear or see. He was like a deaf or a blind person. Ask my heart, where is the Nirvana realm? Yi Fan was not afraid, and he did not panic. His heart was very calm. He seriously thought about what he had learned, and he tried his best to look at the fog, wanting to see through it. Nirvana realm, repent and be saved? He kept asking himself, the path of cultivation is long and tortuous. How can I turn back? How can I turn back? I have to move forward bravely. The fog was still sealed, and his 5 senses became more and more numb. He felt that he was about to lose all his spiritual sense, and this was a danger he had never experienced before. He might stop here and become a cripple. According to records, the greater the potential, the harder it is to break free from the misfortune of being lost. I am not discouraged, and I should rejoice. Yi Fan was still calm, and he did not panic. Instead, he felt even more confident. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed, and he still did not walk out of the fog. Time passed slowly, and for 2 whole months, Yi Fan was experiencing the misfortune of being lost. When his 5 senses were completely taken away, he could not sense anything. Nirvana realm, not the opposite shore. Why do I need to search? Wherever I go, it will be there. Where I stand, it is the Nirvana realm, said Yi Fan calmly. Rumble. The fog rolled and quickly dissipated. The world became clear, and everything was in front of him. In just an instant, the fog dissipated, and his 5 senses recovered. They were better than before, and they were incomparably sharp. A mysterious light enveloped his body as if he was receiving a baptism. He had passed the test of life and death, and had broken free from the misfortune of being lost. His instincts were being baptized, and his spiritual sense rushed out like a waterfall. The range he could sense became wider, and his body and mind seemed to have been tempered. Yi Fan immersed his mind into the sea of reincarnation. At this moment, the heavenly vein became thicker and clearer, and it was like a purple-gold bridge in the sea that led to an unknown place. He stepped onto the bridge and walked forward. Just as he said, wherever he went, there was the Nirvana realm. He crossed the sea. The heavenly vein shone brightly. He crossed the sea of bitterness and came to the end. This was a pure land filled with clouds and mist. In the sky, he could vaguely see a huge Taoist palace. The white clouds blocked his vision, and the Taoist palace disappeared. He could no longer capture it, but Yi Fan did not feel it was a pity. He had just reached the Nirvana realm and had not completed it. How could he enter the secret realm of the Taoist palace? The legendary Taoist palace corresponded to the thoracic region of the human body. There were 5 gods there, and when one cultivated in the secret realm, all sorts of strange things would happen. As long as the goddess of grains did not die, it would be called Xian Pin. The gate of Xian Pin was the root of heaven and earth. The 5 gods gave birth to the 5 elements, and the 5 chi was clear. It was connected to heaven and earth, and it was endless. It could give birth to the power of Tao. After reaching the Nirvana realm, he felt the changes in his body. His essence, chi, and spirit rose, and his divine power surged. The sea of bitterness expanded to the size of a palm, and the waves sparkled brightly. He felt that he could shatter the sky with one palm and crack the earth with one foot. This was a strange illusion after becoming stronger. He did not move, but he held the fist-sized origin in his hand and began to slowly refine it. He needed to consolidate this realm. He did not expect to reach the Nirvana realm and undergo a metamorphosis like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. That was unrealistic. After all, he had just reached this realm. The fist-sized origin was pure and flawless. It was overflowing with colors and contained an unimaginable majestic chi of essence. Yi Fan refined it for half a day and finally finished absorbing it. After that, He was silent for another 10 days before he finally woke up completely and completed this cultivation. This is... At this moment, Yifan was shocked when he looked at the sea of reincarnation. The golden sea of bitterness was sparkling. He felt that there was something more. On the surface of the sea, it was full of vitality and there was green. What is that? Yifan was dumbfounded. There was a strange plant growing in the golden sea. It was faintly discernible like a green lotus, and there was a chaotic mist lingering around it. How could this be? He was very shocked and did not know why such a change would happen. When he inadvertently raised his head, he was stunned again. The sky above the sea of reincarnation was no longer misty and empty. It was blue like the sky. Yifan was really shocked. After reaching the Nirvana realm, a series of changes actually happened. The sky. Green lotus. Is my anomaly going to appear? He found it hard to calm down, and then he said to himself, no, this is just the initial evolution of the sea of reincarnation. It can't be considered an anomaly. Chapter 165. The firmament above was green, deep and distant. Yifan couldn't see anything and couldn't speculate. In the sea of bitterness, a green lotus stood alone. It was full of vitality as if it was giving birth to a lively world. Around it, chaotic mist lingered, mysterious and hazy. At this moment, Yifan calmed down. His mind was empty as he observed carefully. It had just broken out of the water with only 3 green leaves. It had a natural Tao nature as if it was explaining the beginning of heaven and earth. The Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. Everything is mixed, born before heaven and earth, the ancestor of all things, the ancestor of the elephant emperor. Yifan thought of these words in the ancient books. This green lotus was one with the sea of reincarnation. It had a strange charm like an unfathomable Tao abyss. It was calm and tranquil, as if it could exist forever. Yifan crossed the sea of bitterness and reached the Nirvana realm. The sea of reincarnation's initial evolution was mysterious and difficult to describe. The cauldron that was less than an inch tall bobbed up and down on the green lotus, looking more and more majestic. Yifan's heart moved. He was already a cultivator of the Nirvana realm and his strength had increased a lot. He tried to take out the cauldron. Swoosh! The cauldron appeared outside his body and hovered in front of him. He still felt a mountain-like pressure, but he could activate it this time. Bang! The cauldron didn't shoot up into the sky. It flew not far away, and when it came into contact with a boulder that was more than 10 meters tall, ashes filled the sky and the boulder was destroyed silently. It shook lightly, and so did the stone forest. The surrounding boulders were all shattered and turned into dust. The power of the cauldron was evident. However, Yifan's body also trembled. This cauldron didn't give birth to any Tao patterns, but it was already like a bottomless pit. As strong as his physique was, 1/3 of his strength was drained. In other words, he could only use it 3 times. This cauldron was powerful, but he couldn't use it as he wished. This made him happy and frown at the same time. Yifan activated it again and enlarged the cauldron to 1 meter tall. This was the limit of his control. Any bigger and he wouldn't be able to bear it. The cauldron floated in the sky like a bottomless pit, as if it could swallow the heavens. In front of it was a stone forest. The boulders that looked like crouching cows and bamboo shoots were all sucked into the cauldron. Yifan retrieved the cauldron and looked inside. He saw that it was filled with stones. With a gentle shake, everything inside was turned to dust. It slowly turned upside down, and the ashes flew away. There wasn't a speck of dust inside, and it was as clean as new. Even though his divine force was about to be sucked dry, he was still extremely satisfied. He liked this cauldron a lot. This type of power was truly great. There were no fluctuations, no divine radiance. The cauldron silently disappeared, returning to his sea of reincarnation. Now that the tripod had been refined and he had reached the Nirvana realm, his confidence had increased. After cultivating here for more than a few months, he really wanted to understand the situation outside. I wonder if the people of the Ji family have left. After recovering his divine power, Yifan walked outside. Outside the fire domain, the ground was dry and cracked. The scorched earth was vast, stretching as far as the eye could see. It was a barren land. More than half a year had already passed, and the Ji family disciples had long since left. That's good too. They think I've already perished. When the time comes, I'll give them a surprise. Yi Fan returned to the fire domain and prepared to draw upon the 5-colored cloud flame of the 7th level to refine his own tripod and make it more condensed. The 5-colored cloud flame was even hotter than the purple gas. He had just gotten close, and he hadn't even entered, but he already felt waves of scorching heat. This caused Yi Fan's heart to tremble. This was the result of holding the Bodhi seed in his hand. If he didn't have this seed, he most likely wouldn't be able to get close. Can I control such a powerful flame? He was uncertain. He carefully absorbed a wisp of the 5-colored cloud flame. Instantly, a sizzling sound rang out as his divine power was completely burned away. Yi Fan inhaled a breath of cold air. This kind of flame was too powerful. It could burn important figures alive. The human-shaped ashes on the ground proved all of this. He had no good idea how to safely absorb it into the sea of reincarnation and use it to refine the tripod. In the following days, he kept trying. He wanted to proceed safely and didn't act rashly. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound coming from outside. If it wasn't for his powerful consciousness, he wouldn't have sensed it at all. Could it be that someone is here? Yi Fan stealthily headed out. In the 4th level of the fire domain, black nether flames danced. A middle-aged man sat motionlessly on a huge rock. Above his head was an ancient pagoda that was half the height of a person. The flickering black flames constantly gathered on the body of the pagoda, causing it to emit sonorous sounds. The ancient pagoda was slowly changing shape. Why is he refining outside his body? He doesn't care much about his own weapons. Why did he come to the fire domain? Yi Fan was somewhat puzzled. At this moment, his expression changed. He was no stranger to that pagoda. He had seen it before. The ancient pagoda with 5 levels was completely silvery white. Although it was somewhat bright, there were traces of old age. That was why it gave off an overflowing feeling of antiquity. A middle-aged man in hemp garments. Yi Fan immediately thought of the group of people who chased after him and Jianghu. Among them, there was a middle-aged cultivator in hemp garments. He held a 5-level ancient pagoda in his hand and almost killed him. At this moment, this man was dressed in black and sat quietly. However, the silver pagoda above his head kept changing shape. He wanted to melt it and refine it again. A 5-level ancient pagoda can be considered a powerful weapon. He actually wants to melt it. When a wisp of black and yellow chi rushed out from the pagoda, Yi Fan was even more certain that it was definitely the man in hemp garments. Although he didn't see his face that day, this pagoda was definitely not wrong. He's afraid that the Ji family will find clues and wants to erase the final traces. Yi Fan really wanted to know where this person came from. The hidden enemy really made him feel uneasy. Looks like he doesn't care much about this weapon. Maybe it's really as Jianghu said, that this person is a puppet being controlled. Yi Fan observed carefully. Indeed, he felt that this person was a bit stiff. He sat there cross-legged like a piece of wood. I'm going to take him down and understand everything. He pondered for a moment and felt that this person was very strong. In terms of cultivation realm, this person was definitely above him. At the very least, he was a Dao Palace cultivator. I need to be absolutely safe. Otherwise, if I can't kill him and my identity is exposed, it will be a huge disaster. Yi Fan silently returned to the 6th level of the fire region. He took out his cauldron and let it absorb large amounts of purple flames like a whale drinking water. He then quickly meditated and quickly recovered his divine power. 8 minutes later, he returned to the 4th level of the Hellfire region and waited quietly. 4 hours later, the black-robed man completely melted the silver pagoda and remodeled it, slowly evolving it into a silver bell. At the final critical moment, when the silver bell was about to take shape, Yi Fan finally made his move. At this moment, the black-robed man was highly focused. His mind was completely immersed in the silver bell, carrying out the final refinement. The cauldron silently pressed forward and flipped violently. Large amounts of purple flames covered the sky and earth, burning fiercely. This kind of temperature could even burn important characters to death, not to mention cultivators of other realms. However, this person was unexpectedly cautious. He had actually carved Dao patterns around him. Brilliant light rushed out to block the purple flames. The legendary figure's treasures couldn't endure the purple flames and would break apart inch by inch. Even though there were Dao patterns here, they couldn't stop it. The only use it had was to buy time for this person. He was as fast as a ghost as he shifted to the side. Chi! Yi Fan was already prepared. The golden book had been waiting for a long time and was ready to meet the black-robed man. With a flash of blood, the black-robed man was gravely injured. His body suddenly stiffened, and at the same time, the purple flames fell. No matter how fast he was still brushed by it. Half of his body was instantly set ablaze, and the left half of his body turned into ashes on the spot. The sky trembled slightly. The cauldron grew 1 meter tall and seemed to have the power to swallow the sky. It sucked in the middle-aged man's half-destroyed body and sealed him inside. Only now did Yi Fan release a breath of relief. He took out the holy jade bottle and quickly drank a mouthful of divine spring water. His divine force immediately recovered, and then he looked inside the cauldron. The black-robed man's body was half destroyed. He continuously trembled and struggled to sit up. He raised his head and saw Yi Fan. He immediately revealed a look of shock and said, "It's you. You're still alive." Yi Fan was moved. The other party cried out involuntarily as if they were quite familiar with each other. It was not as simple as chasing after him. He immediately laughed and said, "Just what kind of background do you have? I truly never thought that your life would be so tough." The black-robed man sighed. He then suddenly raised his head and a streak of light shot out from between his brows. He wanted to rush out of the cauldron, but it ended in failure. He couldn't break free from this cauldron. You are a walking corpse after all. You're just being controlled by someone. Yi Fan reached out his divine sense and was about to imprison him. However, the black-robed man was very decisive. The streak of light exploded like fireworks, leaving behind specks of light that ultimately dissipated in the cauldron. Yi Fan's expression changed, but it was already too late to stop him. He carefully searched where he was and found that the black-robed man's body was empty. Other than the silver bell that had been completely destroyed by the violet flames, there was nothing left. He threw the half-destroyed body into the netherworld flames, and in an instant, it turned into ashes. He muttered to himself. Just who was it? It seemed to be someone familiar. Yi Fan cleaned up the traces of the scene and retreated into the 5th layer of the golden flames to hide. He quietly waited, wanting to see if anyone would appear. 3 days later, a tall old man finally appeared. He observed the pile of ashes for a moment and muttered to himself. He actually died here. Who is this damned old man? I've never seen him before. Yi Fan was suspicious. Swoosh! With a flash of light, the old man rushed out of the fiery domain and quickly disappeared into the distance. 2 days later, Yi Fan walked into the 7th layer of the fiery domain. Even with the Bodhi seed protecting him, he still felt waves of burning pain. The temperature of the multicolored flames was unimaginable. The divine power that cultivators painstakingly cultivated could be directly ignited and could not be resisted. This kind of multicolored flame seemed to have a demonic nature and could devour anything. Although Yi Fan had successfully entered, he didn't know how to guide the flames into his body. The multicolored flames were too terrifying. Several days later, people shouted and beasts roared. It was as if there was a magnificent army galloping. The earth rumbled and trembled as countless strange beasts rushed towards the fiery domain. Among them, there were some powerful beasts whose roars could travel dozens of li. Yi Fan's divine sense was extremely sharp, and he was immediately alerted. He hurriedly looked around and revealed an expression of shock. The people from the Ji clan are here. Just outside the fiery domain, there were more than 100 savage beasts, each of them divine and extraordinary. They stepped through the air and rumbled, causing the earth and sky to tremble. All of the riders wore black iron armor and were filled with an austere aura. A large flag with the word Ji written on it fluttered in the wind. Yi Fan saw Ji Hui, Ji Bue, and several other famous figures. There was also a carriage pulled by 9 divine horses that floated outside the fiery domain. The divine horses' roars shook the heavens. Each of them was as large as an elephant and had dense scales. There was a powerful pressure coming from them. The carriage sparkled and blossomed with auspicious colors. It was obvious that important figures from the Ji clan had arrived. They can't be here for me, right? It shouldn't be like this. It's already been half a year. What are they here for? Yi Fan was bewildered. An old man walked out of the carriage. Ji Hui hurriedly went forward and respectfully helped him off the carriage. Damn you! Yi Fan didn't dare to peep anymore and directly hid himself in the depths of the fiery domain. Chapter 166. Right now, the outside world was even more dangerous for Yi Fan. If he was discovered, he would die without a doubt. He guessed that the people of the Ji clan had not come for him. After all, more than half a year had passed. This time, he just had to avoid them. Yi Fan went directly to the depths of the 7th level. He only stopped when he neared the 8th level. In front of him, the 7-colored mist curled. It looked peaceful and peaceful. The 8th level was right in front of him. The terrifying heat was like a torrential river that rushed into the 7th level. It was as if the heaven and earth were a copper cauldron that could refine everything in the world. He sucked in a breath of cold air. The 5-colored flame cloud only lacked 2 colors compared to the 7-colored mist, but the difference in temperature was so huge that it could not be calculated with logic. The 5-colored flame already made him feel hot. The 7-colored mist was even more terrifying. Even if he had the Bodhi seed, he could not enter casually. The important people usually forge in the 6th and 7th level. If that old bastard enters the 7th level, I have to enter the 8th level even if I have to risk my life. I hope he stops at the purple air from the east area. Yi Fan really did not want to enter the 8th level. He had no confidence. If he was burned to death, then everything would be for naught. Caw caw. At this time, Yi Fan was shocked. He heard the caws of crows. They came from the 8th level. He was dumbfounded. The 7th level could burn god power and burn important people to death. The 8th level was unimaginable. How could there be crows? Yi Fan walked around the edge of the 8th level. He looked inside. The 7-colored mist curled up like countless small rainbows. Moreover, there were huge rocks everywhere. They were strangely shaped and formed a stone forest. Caw! Yi Fan heard the crow caw again. It was clear like metal splitting the air. At this time, he saw a huge rock in front of him. It was 100 meters tall like a small mountain. This was where the ominous sound came from. At the base of the mountain there was a cave. Yi Fan looked carefully and found several black feathers flashing with black light at the entrance. He was truly shocked. There was a living crow in the 8th level of the fiery domain. He broke out into a cold shiver. This was definitely not normal. Even great figures stopped at the 7th layer, so how could a crow run into the 8th layer's fiery domain? I can't provoke him. Yi Fan obediently retreated. He found a stone forest and hid there. In front of him was Crow, behind him was Ji family's big shot. He was sandwiched in the middle. Fortunately, the 5-colored cloud flame seemed to have a demonic nature and could devour anything. Even the big shots did not dare to casually extend their divine senses. Yi Fan hid in the stone forest and quietly cultivated. He didn't dare to light a fire to refine the cauldron. If he alerted the Ji clan, he would be in big trouble. For the first few days, everything was very peaceful. Nothing special happened. However, 8 or 9 days later, a series of clanging sounds could be heard from the 6th level of the fiery domain. Yi Fan was completely relieved. The important figures of the Ji clan came here to forge weapons. It had nothing to do with him. He was a little curious. He didn't know what kind of weapon the other party wanted to forge to cause such a huge commotion. The 6th level of the fiery domain surged with purple energy. A scarlet light shot into the sky, illuminating the entire sky. What is that old bastard forging? Yi Fan felt very shocked. He stealthily hid himself and observed the outside from the 7th level of the fiery domain. Because the distance was too far, he could only vaguely see that there was a huge copper cauldron standing there. It really is a copper cauldron. Yi Fan changed his position and could see clearly. It was a huge copper cauldron that was at least 30 meters tall. It was surrounded by purple flames and emitted rumbling sounds. The scarlet light came from the copper cauldron. A gray-robed old man sat cross-legged at the side. He held a jade fan in his hand and continuously fanned it. Purple flames gathered from all directions and surged towards the copper cauldron. This old fellow doesn't dare to use his own body as a cauldron to forge weapons. He is borrowing the power of a real cauldron to forge weapons. The red light emitted by the huge copper cauldron became more and more intense. It manifested in the sky and formed a divine boat. It was scarlet like blood and seemed to be forged from blood jade. What a great treasure! It is about to take shape. It has already manifested in the sky. This old thing is really not ordinary. Yi Fan knew that if this divine boat was successfully forged and carved with the profound Tao patterns of the Ji clan, it would definitely be extraordinary. After all, it was forged by an important person. Clang, clang, clang. The sound from within the copper cauldron became louder. It clearly spread out for dozens of miles and reverberated in the sky. Compared to the divine boat, this copper cauldron is even more precious. Yi Fan didn't dare to look anymore and retreated to avoid being discovered by the other party. After entering the depths of the 7th level of the fiery domain, Yi Fan heard the cawing of crows again. It was faintly discernible and seemed to be very irritable. Caw, caw. What exactly is going on? Yi Fan moved forward and saw the stone cave at the base of the mountain from afar. Flames were spewing out from there, and rainbow-colored mist lingered around it. It was scorching hot. At the entrance of the cave, there were more black feathers flickering with black light. Apart from that, there were also some ashes. Yi Fan muttered to himself, "Is this a spirit born from the flames or a real crow? Damn it!" In the 8th level of the fiery domain, these two words actually came out from that stone cave. It seemed to be extremely angry. Yi Fan couldn't believe his ears. Clang! Inside the flame cave, a piece of broken metal flew out. It was completely snow-white and looked like suet jade. Yi Fan was stunned. This was definitely the legendary divine metal and could be said to be a rare item. It was a top-grade material for forging artifacts. It was said that even the Alcade Divine Lord's weapon had this type of divine metal added into it. One could imagine how precious it was. It was obvious that someone was forging an artifact and had ruined the divine metal before throwing it out of the cave. Crow spirit. Yi Fan shuddered. This was definitely a peerless old demon. He made a prompt decision and immediately retreated far away. He didn't dare to stay any longer. In the following days, the cries of crows came from the 8th level of the fiery domain from time to time. They became more and more irritable. Another 5 days passed. In the 6th level of the fiery domain, a deafening sound came from the copper furnace of the important figure of the Ji clan. It shook the sky like thunder, and the entire fiery domain could hear it clearly. At this moment, in the flame cave at the base of the 8th level of the fiery domain, an exasperated cry came out. Then, a few snow-white pieces of divine metal were thrown out of the cave. This is infuriating. The rainbow-colored mist surged, and the stone cave erupted with a dazzling light. Endless raging flames surged out, and then an old Taoist priest rushed out in anger. He was wearing a feathered robe made of black bird feathers that flickered with black light. He looked like an old crow in his 50s or 60s. Who dares to forge an artifact and shake the entire fiery domain? The old Taoist priest's voice rang out clearly. His anger surged, and he directly rushed into the sky, flying towards the 6th level of the fiery domain. Yi Fan's heart trembled. He only saw a black light streak across the sky and land in the 6th level of the fiery domain. What kind of existence was a demon forging in the 8th level of the fiery domain? Just thinking about it made his scalp numb. Who are you? The important figure of the Ji clan seemed to be shouting. However, with a loud rumble, he swallowed all the words he wanted to say and did not speak for a long time. Although Yi Fan couldn't see it, he could imagine it. He was extremely shocked. That old demon was definitely a ruthless fellow. He really didn't know what he was going to do. Boom! A terrifying wave of energy erupted from the 6th level of the fiery domain. Purple chi filled the sky, as if someone had beaten it until it was boiling. Why did you? This was the voice of the powerful figure of the Ji clan. You shook the fiery domain while forging here. You ruined my divine clock. Give me an explanation. That old demon seemed to be on the verge of exploding with anger. He said, I never cause trouble, but I can't help but be angry today. What does it have to do with me that your divine clock is ruined? The important figure of the Ji clan seemed a little apprehensive. If it wasn't for you making such a noise and disturbing my mind, how could it have been ruined? If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't come out of seclusion earlier, I would have come to find trouble with you long ago. Yi Fan listened from afar and didn't dare to approach. He was afraid of being caught in the crossfire. The fiery domain has no master. What right do you have to blame me? My Ji clan has never provoked anyone. Are you trying to remind me that you are from the Ji clan? The old Taoist's voice was cold. If it was someone else, I might have let them go, but the Ji clan. Yi Fan was secretly speechless from afar. This old demon definitely had a grudge against the Ji clan. Boom! The 6th level of the fiery domain suddenly went berserk. Purple chi overflowed and rushed in all directions. Raging flames raged and burned fiercely. The important figures have started fighting. Yi Fan was alarmed, but he didn't go over. He restrained his impulse. He knew that those people were extremely sharp and he definitely couldn't get close. Fortunately, the multicolored mist devoured all energy, so the important figures couldn't probe him. Otherwise, he might have already been discovered. The energy fluctuations were terrifying, but they quickly calmed down. There was no longer any sound. So fast. Has the battle ended? Yi Fan's heart trembled. When I, the Crow Taoist, fought with the almighty figures of your Ji clan, your grandfather wasn't even born yet. A black light rushed into the sky. Yi Fan only saw a silhouette. It indeed looked like an old crow. He wore a black feather robe and had a skinny figure. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared and directly left the fiery domain. Crow Taoist. Yi Fan saw that he had completely disappeared. Only then did he walk towards the 6th level of the fiery domain. That huge copper furnace had already disappeared. It must have been taken away by the Crow Taoist. The expert of the Ji clan was decapitated and fell into a pool of blood. A dozen black feathers stabbed into the ground beside him, blocking the purple flames outside and not burning him. Yi Fan's hair stood on end. An important figure of the Ji clan was killed just like that. How terrifying was that old crow? His body was preserved, but his consciousness was extinguished and completely dissipated. He definitely couldn't come back to life. Yi Fan was speechless. Such an expert was killed just like that. The world of cultivation was indeed cruel. If one couldn't be ranked at the peak, they wouldn't even be able to keep their lives. He quickly calmed down and reached out his hand to search the corpse. After all, this was an important figure of the Ji clan. The things he left behind would definitely be extraordinary. However, he was disappointed. There were no treasures on the corpse. Whether it was the Sea of Reincarnation or the Tao Palace, they were all empty. There wasn't a single treasure. This old crow is really thorough. He took everything away. Looking at the dozen black feathers on the ground, his heart trembled. The Crow Taoist purposely left them behind. It was obvious that he was provoking the Ji clan. An important figure of the Ji clan died. This was definitely a storm. One could imagine that the southern region wouldn't be peaceful. Chi! At this time, the space suddenly ruptured. A famous figure of the Ji clan appeared. He wore a special colorful robe that blocked the purple flames. When he saw the corpse on the ground and Yi Fan, he was instantly stunned. His face was filled with disbelief. He was shocked to the extreme. You! The instant the void ruptured, Yi Fan took out the cauldron and directly pressed down. Leaving aside the grudges of the past, he couldn't even explain the situation in front of him. He could only take him down when he was unprepared. Otherwise, there was no way he could survive. Chapter 167. The cauldron expanded to 1 foot tall and pressed down. The legendary figure of the Ji clan couldn't avoid it. He crashed into it himself. Bang! It was hard to estimate how heavy a cauldron made from the source chi of all beings was. Even someone as powerful as the legendary figure of the Ji clan, who had reached the 3rd secret realm, couldn't bear the weight. His right shoulder caved in. Wretch! He spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a scarecrow that had been hit by a hammer, he flew out and crashed into a 10-meter-tall stalagmite. Granduncle! The legendary figure's face was full of shock. Looking at the corpse not far away, he couldn't believe it. It's you! Yi Fan didn't reply. He attacked again. Though the cauldron was plain, it was powerful. When it pressed down, the ground below began to shake. This time, the legendary figure of the Ji clan was prepared. He turned into a beam of light and dashed out, dodging the attack. Bastard, you're still alive. The legendary elder of the Ji clan was both angry and shocked. He never thought he would see Yi Fan in the 6th layer of the fire realm. It had been half a year. No one thought he could survive. Everyone thought he had turned into ashes and had no hope of survival. I am full of energy. How can I die? Even if the Ji clan is destroyed, I won't die. As Yi Fan spoke, he rode the cauldron towards the 7th level. 2 attacks didn't kill him, so he retreated decisively. After all, his opponent had reached the 3rd secret realm. He couldn't compete with him. You didn't die before. Today, I will send you on your way. The legendary figure rose into the air and chased after Yi Fan. At this moment, his right shoulder was completely deformed and caved in. It had turned into a pile of blood. Even though he was full of life, he couldn't regrow it immediately. Worry about yourself. Don't die in the fire field. Yi Fan was extremely fast. After reaching the Nirvana realm, he used a mysterious footwork and moved like a shooting star. Little thief Yi, you've obtained my Ji family's Great Void technique and you still want to live in this world? You must be dreaming. The Ji family's legendary elder's face was gloomy and his killing intent soared to the sky. Go back to your grandpa's house. You're biting the hand that feeds you, and you're even acting like you've been wronged. Yi Fan clenched his teeth and said, when I have the strength, I'll definitely flip your Ji family over and let you all feel wronged. Even someone 100 times more powerful than you wouldn't dare to say something like that. Even if you cultivate for another 1,000 years, you'll still be nothing. The old man from the Ji family showed grief and anger on his face. He said, how did my granduncle die? An important figure in the family had actually died here. This was a huge matter. He couldn't get over it and committed suicide by slitting his own throat. Yi Fan ridiculed. In this hostile situation, he didn't want to explain anything. How did he die? After the Ji family's legendary elder calmed down, he felt that it couldn't have been done by Yi Fan. The important figures of the Ji family were so powerful that unless the Peacock King personally came, how could he be killed silently? You go and ask him yourself later. Brat, after I catch you, I'll pull out your tendons, peel off your skin, and search your soul. The body of the Ji family's old man was trembling. An important figure had died here, and it was unknown. This made him extremely angry. The 5-colored flame cloud was in front, and the scorching temperature came. Yi Fan flashed and disappeared, rushing in. The Ji family's legendary elder was dumbfounded and stopped on the spot. He didn't dare to follow in. Although he had the fire-repelling robe on him, it was impossible to block the flames of the 7th floor. How did you do it? Thinking that Yi Fan wasn't afraid of the purple gas of the 6th floor, nor the 7-colored flame cloud, his face was full of shock and he couldn't speak for a long time. You old bastard, why didn't you follow in? Don't you have the fire-repelling robe on you? Yi Fan truly lived up to his reputation. With a smile he said, I challenge you to a battle of 300 rounds. Do you dare to accept? The Ji family's legendary elder didn't bat an eyelid. He suddenly took out a chopstick-sized silver spear, wanting to pierce it forward and kill Yi Fan. Crack! However, as soon as the silver spear flew out, it began to tremble. Cracks appeared on its surface, and then inch by inch, it was destroyed by the purple flame. Your fire-repelling robe is only Azo. And here I thought it would be more mystical. The smile on Yi Fan's face grew wider as he slowly walked back. This place is called the Eastern Violet Aura. This fiery domain is indeed worthy of its reputation. The Ji family's legendary elder revealed an expression of surprise. He raised his left hand, and his palm blossomed with light. Then, a bolt of lightning shot out and rushed forward. Whoosh! Even though the lightning was violent, it was still melted by the purple flame and slowly disappeared. Seeing this scene, Yi Fan completely relaxed. He took out the pristine jade bottle and drank a mouthful to recover his divine energy. Then, he walked out of the 7th level in large strides. I thought your fire-repelling robe would be more mystical, but it is only Azo. He didn't have any misgivings at this point. No matter how powerful his opponent's divine energy was, it was useless. His physique was comparable to a precious blade, and he had a powerful consciousness. He also had a cauldron that was impervious to flames. All these factors combined made him fearless. Seeing that Yi Fan dared to come out, the Ji family's legendary elder was moved. Since the opponent was so confident, he didn't dare to be careless and slowly retreated. It's too late, old man. It seems like you can't send me on my way. I can let you go down and reunite with that antique. Yi Fan stood in the distance and didn't rush over. He took out the golden book. An array of light that was as bright as the sun pierced through the purple sky. The paper that recorded the Tao scripture wasn't a weapon, but it was even more powerful than a weapon. The flames here couldn't burn it, and after turning into golden light, it was unstoppable and extremely sharp. What a powerful spirit item. Are you gifting me a treasure? The Ji family's legendary elder was shocked, and then he revealed a joyous expression. He didn't even have a weapon of this level, and yet the opponent was only a youth, yet he had such a treasure. If you can take it, then I'll gift it to you. Yi Fan laughed. With a ripping sound, the golden book brushed past his body and almost hit him. The Ji family's legendary elder didn't say anything. His palms and fingers trembled as he continuously struck the golden book, wanting to take it down and take it. Yi Fan silently estimated that the opponent's physique was indeed terrifying. After cultivating 3 secret realms, he had been reborn. However, compared to him, he was still a bit weaker. Seeing this, he calmed down. At this moment, the Ji family's legendary elder sneered. He used the Great Void technique and turned into a wisp of black smoke. He pounced forward and said coldly, "Little brat, you're too arrogant. I'll kill you in close combat. Let's see how you can escape now." He was confident that at this distance, Yi Fan wouldn't be able to escape and would die for sure. Yi Fan took out the golden book to test the opponent. He had already predicted that the opponent would attack and was waiting for this moment of close combat. He didn't retreat. His golden fist met the opponent's only left palm. The force was ferocious, and it smashed down like a giant hammer. Bang! The Ji family's legendary elder felt like he was struck by lightning. His face was full of disbelief, and then, he looked like he was in extreme pain. Crack! He clearly heard the bones in his left hand break, and it was completely deformed. At this moment, his entire arm was numb, and his body was like a stone that was thrown away. You! He was very decisive. Without any hesitation, he used the Great Void technique and was about to escape. At this moment, he deeply understood the meaning of the word evil. He was just a young man whose cultivation was far below his, but he was so strange that he suffered losses again and again. Unfortunately, Yi Fan was already prepared and didn't give him a chance. The cauldron had already been taken out. It turned into a meter tall and pressed down. The sky trembled slightly, and the purple chi seemed to have evaporated. The area became a vacuum. The Great Void technique had failed. The Ji family's legendary elder was pressed down by the cauldron above his head. His body was cracking and his joints were shaking. The great pressure was unbearable. Crack! His raised left arm was the first to shatter, turning into a bloody mist. Then, cracks appeared on his skull. His face was ferocious, and he said in a trembling voice, "What kind of cauldron is this?" "A cauldron made from the source of all beings." Yi Fan stood nearby and answered. "What?" His expression changed, and he was incomparably shocked. A strand of yellow can crush a mountain, so many. A strand of all beings could indeed crush a mountain, but after it was made into a cauldron, Yi Fan couldn't use that kind of power. If he had enough divine power, even if this cauldron didn't have profound Tao patterns on it, it would be enough for him to dominate the world. It could pierce through the sky, sink the earth, and dry up rivers. Unfortunately, the cauldron made from the source of all beings had returned to its original state, and it was completely restrained. It was incomparably heavy and didn't display its true terror. Crack! The Ji family's legendary elder couldn't take it anymore. Many of his bones cracked, and his face became deathly pale. A cauldron made from the source of all beings was too terrifying. Yi Fan didn't feel good either. The cauldron was like a bottomless pit, absorbing endless divine power. It was hard to satisfy it, especially when it was suppressing such a strong cultivator. The amount of divine power it needed was even greater. In just a short while, he had already drunk 5 mouthfuls of divine spring water. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hold on. "Old thing, hurry up and be on your way." Yi Fan gritted his teeth. He activated his divine power while walking in the air. His heavy footsteps seemed to have caused the space to collapse. Bang! He finally got close. He swung his right leg and kicked out. The Ji family's legendary elder spat out a mouthful of blood. His sternum caved in, and he was blown away. Boom! The 1-meter-tall cauldron slowly pressed down. The Ji family's legendary elder no longer had the power to block it. His body cracked and turned into dust on the spot. In the end, nothing was left. The only bit of blood was instantly evaporated by the purple flame. The fire-repelling robe was also turned into ashes, and nothing was left. Yi Fan liked this cauldron even more. It was simple and unadorned, but it was extremely powerful. Even a cultivator with 3 secret realms would be at a disadvantage if he was suppressed by it. The only downside was that it consumed too much divine power, and it was unbearable. Moreover, it was difficult to show it to others. If people knew that this cauldron was made from the source of all beings, it would cause a huge commotion. Yi Fan wanted to guard the 6th level of the fire field and wait for Ji Hui to come in to investigate. Then he would kill her. However, he didn't act impulsively. What he needed to do now was to hide. The Crow Taoist had killed an important figure of the Ji family. This would definitely cause a storm. The fire field would not be peaceful anymore. He had to leave first. The Peacock King had killed a supreme elder of the Ji clan, provoking the Holy Lord of the Ji clan and the Alcade Holy Lord to join hands and fight their way into the depths of the Xianxia mountain range. Now that another big shot had fallen, the storm would be even bigger. After losing 2 important figures, the Ji family had to establish their power. Otherwise, where would they keep their face? Yi Fan stealthily left from another direction and left the fiery domain, quietly waiting for the great storm. As expected on that day, the Saint Lord of the Ji family led many powerful cultivators to the fire field. The wild beasts roared and stomped on the sky. Their roars shook the sky. The outskirts of the fire field were densely packed with people and cavalry. The entire fire field was in an uproar. Chapter 168. The Ji clan mobilized a large number of people. Their cavalry swept through the sky, and their banners fluttered in the wind. People shouted and beasts roared. Murderous intent shot into the sky, and cold light shone on their armor. This power didn't seem like it belonged to the mortal world. It was like heavenly soldiers and generals had arrived. Strange beasts stepped on the air and ran above the clouds. Even the sky was shaking. The Ji clan saint leader didn't merge with the air this time. He stood high in the sky and was surrounded by countless rings of light. It was like the Eastern Barren Territory's God King was being reborn. With him as the center, an ocean-like ripple spread out. Powerful divine power swept up the 9 heavens and down to the 9 hells. At this moment, the Ji clan saint leader became the center of the world. Divine wind blew for dozens of miles. The Ji clan saint leader flew across the sky and landed on the 6th level. Purple energy shot into the sky, but it couldn't get close to his body. Everywhere he passed, the flames were silently extinguished. It could be said that at this moment, he wasn't a god king, but he was comparable to one. Behind him, 6 or 7 elders landed as well. On the ground, the blood had dried up long ago. The head and the body were separated, and no spirit was left behind. He had been completely killed. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't save him. More than 10 black feathers stabbed into the ground randomly and surrounded the body. This was why the bones weren't burned by the purple flames. "This is..." An extremely old elder with white eyebrows that were half a foot long frowned and said, "The feathers of the fire crow are as tough as iron and can't be melted by flames. These are the feathers of an old crow that has cultivated for more than 1,000 years." The elders looked at each other. One of them thought for a while and said, 1,500 years ago, there was a crow Taoist in the southern region. His power was unfathomable. Then, he mysteriously disappeared and hasn't been seen since. The Ji clan saint leader grabbed a feather and flicked it in his hand. Instantly, there was a clanging sound as if divine metal was shaking. A grand elder's expression changed and he said, "This old demon's life is about to end, but his cultivation is becoming more and more terrifying. No matter who he is, no matter how strong he is, as long as we find him, we must kill him." The Ji family sacred lord said coldly as killing intent filled the air. When he opened his eyes, 2 beams of light shot out like sharp swords that swept across the fire zone. In less than half a year, the Ji clan had lost 2 great elders. To the clan of the Huanggu, this was a great humiliation. They were supposed to be the rulers of the world, but now they were being provoked again and again. Up until now, the Peacock King was still free and unfettered in the mortal world. Now that such a situation had occurred, if they couldn't establish their might, how could the Ji family face the world? On this day, the entire southern region was shaken. The Ji clan announced to the world that the name of Crow Taoist had been added to their must-kill list. All of the cultivators in the eastern wasteland and southern region were shocked. During the past half year, there had been endless disturbances, and there had never been a true calm. Now, a storm was rising again. For many people, they had never heard of the name Crow Daoist. But when the grand elders of the various sects heard of it, their faces changed. An enormous storm swept through the southern region. The Ji family was truly furious and vowed to establish their might. This caused many sects to tremble with fear, fearing that they would be swept into the storm. Raging waves rose, and the southern region was shaken even more than last time. After leaving the fire domain, Yi Fan heard a lot of news. Half a year ago, the Bronze Immortal Palace had sunk into the eastern wasteland and disappeared. Along with it, dozens of elders had disappeared. They were all experts who had reached the end of their lifespans and could no longer prolong their lives. This indicated that another era had come to an end. The eastern wasteland had lost dozens of top figures. The Bronze Immortal Palace was truly a graveyard for experts. However, this didn't mean that the eastern wasteland had gone through a calamity. Old age and death were normal. Otherwise, these people would have died in recent years. The eastern wasteland was too vast, and there were countless countries. Losing dozens of people didn't have much of an effect. Another important news was that the Peacock King's magical power was monstrous. That day, the Wavering Light Saint and the Ji-Clan Saint worked together, but they still couldn't stop him and the Green Flood Dragon King. They had already brought the Yao Emperor's descendants to the northern region. Furthermore, in the past half a year, the Ji-Clan, the Wavering Light Saint, and the others had also sent experts to the northern region in batches. The divine source there was shocking, and the great factions that had existed since the ancient desolate era all wanted a share of the spoils. The Origin Ancient Mine in the northern region was originally a desolate place, but in the past year, it had become more and more restless. It was said that humanoid creatures appeared, and the sounds of nature intoxicated people. Half a month later, Yi Fan returned to the fire domain. There was great turmoil outside, so this was the safest place. After the Ji clan left, this place became peaceful again. Unless the Wavering Light Saint came personally, not many people would be able to enter the 7th layer of the fire domain. In the past half a month, he had read many historical records in the ancient books of a large country, understanding everything about the fire domain. There were many legends about the fire domain, and many of the records were absurd. Yes, they couldn't be confirmed as historical facts. They could only be classified as legends because the records were too unimaginable. For example, in one of the ancient books, an immortal had been burned to death in the depths of the fire domain. Another ancient book recorded that the ancient desolate tower had appeared here before, floating for thousands of years. It was also recorded that the 9th layer of the fire domain had a total of 10 types of flames. However, the 10th type did not have a source. It had only appeared a few times since ancient times. This made Yi Fan very excited. The fire domain actually had something to do with immortals and the ancient desolate tower. Although it was just a few words and the words were vague, it made it hard for him to remain calm. Yi Fan returned to the 7th layer of the fire domain and prepared to think of a way to refine his cauldron. The 5-colored flame was extremely hot, able to burn a major character to ashes. It was very horrifying. In the ancient books, this kind of multicolored mist was a rare treasure among flames. In the entire southern region, this was the only place where it existed. It was a peak-quality flame source for refining. After careful attempts, Yi Fan used the cauldron to collect the 5-colored flame and send it into the Sea of Reincarnation. He used the Golden Sea to block it and succeeded. However, in just an instant, his expression changed. This kind of flame was too terrifying. Even the Golden Sea could not completely block out the heat. His body was in danger of drying up. In conclusion, his cultivation was far from enough. Even though his physique was special, it was hard for him to endure it. After all, he had not cultivated his sage body yet. Even the major characters of the Ji clan chose to refine in the 6th layer of the fire domain. They did not dare to enter the 7th layer casually. From this, one could imagine how horrifying the 5-colored flame was. At the crucial moment, the azure lotus in the Sea of Bitterness trembled slightly. The mist became hazy and immediately drowned out the Sea of Reincarnation. A cool feeling spread throughout his body. Yi Fan let out a long breath. He felt that he had taken too much of a risk. If not for this mysterious azure lotus, he would have been in danger. Since I have already started, I have to do my best. He continuously absorbed the 5-colored flame into his body, using the azure lotus to protect the Sea of Reincarnation. Finally, The 5-colored flame surged and burned fiercely. Only when it was enough to refine the cauldron did he stop. Just like that, for an entire month, Yi Fan refined his cauldron. The 5-colored flame was extinguished many times. He did not know how many flame essences he had absorbed. Only after another 2 months did he stop. The cauldron became even more condensed and ancient. After the refinement of the 5-colored flame, the inside of the cauldron became misty. The source energy of all things grew endlessly and appeared again. This was the source of the source energy of all things. It would never dry up and was endless. After the refinement, the source energy overflowed again. The cauldron was no longer deathly still and seemed to have life. At this point, the refining process had come to an end. He did not plan to enter the 8th layer of the fire domain. Using the 5-colored flame was already his limit. He could only come back in the future when his cultivation improved. After that, he quietly cultivated and prepared to leave the southern region after the outside world had completely calmed down. Another month passed. On this day, Yi Fan suddenly heard the roar of beasts from outside the fire domain. Could it be that another major character has come to refine a weapon? He stealthily came out and looked into the distance. Outside the fire domain was a barren land. The earth was dry and cracked. Not even a blade of grass grew. At this moment, there were dozens of wild beasts standing in the air. Their scales were ferocious and full of killing intent. Every one of them was incomparably powerful. Their iron robes flickered and cold. Yi Fan was a little surprised to see Jianghu. Her eyes were clear and ethereal. Her purple robe fluttered and she looked like a fairy. She landed on the ground from the sky and silently looked into the fire domain. In the sky, a man in blue robes was as handsome as jade. His robes fluttered like a god. He landed with her on the ground. It was Hua Yunfei of the Taishan sect. "Little brother Yi, we have come to see you. If you know in the underworld, rest in peace." Hua Yunfei's voice was magnetic. Yi Fan was really speechless. He was clearly alive, but he was cursed like this. "Brother Hua, go somewhere else. I want to be alone for a while," Jianghu said calmly. "Okay." Hua Yunfei nodded and did not say anything else. He walked around the fire domain. Jianghu stood there quietly for a moment and then moved. She used the sword in her hand to dig the ground. Seeing this, the knights behind wanted to go up and help but were stopped by her. She personally dug a deep hole and placed the clothes that Yi Fan had left in the humble peak. Then she filled the hole with soil and formed a grave. She set up a tombstone in front of it and carved a line of words with a jade finger. Yi Fan smiled bitterly. He was clearly alive, but he even had a grave. Jianghu stood in front of the cenotaph silently. She was very different from her usual lively personality. She was very quiet and did not move for a long time. At this moment, Yi Fan discovered that Hua Yunfei had entered the fire domain. He was like a blue cloud, light and silent. What does this guy want to do? Yi Fan was very far away from him and observed quietly. Suddenly, his expression froze and his eyes sharpened. He saw a familiar person. A tall old man appeared in the fire domain and bowed to Hua Yunfei. Back then, a hemp-clothed man with a 5-story silver pagoda had chased after him and Jianghu. He had nearly died with a grievance. A few months ago, he had killed the hemp-clothed man in the fire domain. He had seen this old man come to investigate. Hua Yunfei. Yi Fan had never imagined that the true mastermind was actually Hua Yunfei. This was really out of his expectations. In his impression, Hua Yunfei was otherworldly. His celestial music was close to the Tao realm. It was natural and spiritual. Even hundreds of birds came to pay homage and hundreds of flowers bloomed for him. He was like an immortal descending to the mortal world. Such a handsome man had an otherworldly appearance and a spiritual aura. However, he was very scheming. His methods were so ruthless that it made Hua Yunfei's heart tremble. Because they were too far away and the two were communicating with their spiritual senses, Yi Fan could not hear what they were talking about. He could only observe quietly. Not long later, the tall old man left. Hua Yunfei stood there for a long time and muttered to himself, "A strange divine body with extraordinary power. If I obtain it, I must obtain its origin." He slowly walked out of the fire domain. This person has hidden himself too deeply. Even if I tell others, no one will believe me. Yi Fan thought for a while and said, "No, I need to remind Jianghu." Hua Yunfei is obviously harboring evil intentions. At the same time, he decided to leave the fire domain and the southern region. Even if he had to fly, he could not stay in this region any longer. Chapter 169. Outside the fire domain, there were hundreds of knights protecting Jianghu. Yi Fan knew that Hua Yunfei would not act rashly and leave behind any flaws. Jianghu stood quietly in front of the grave like a fairy from the heavens. She was like a thin cloud covering the bright moon, like a gentle breeze caressing the jade flowers, all in one body. A gentle breeze blew, and scarlet flames surged in the first level of the fire domain. At this moment, the golden lake between Yi Fan's eyebrows was as deep as an abyss. His divine sense came out and condensed into a thin thread. He said, "The hemp-robed man who chased you back then listens to Hua Yunfei." After sending the message, Yi Fan rushed into the depths of the fire domain. He believed that if Jianghu was on guard, it would be difficult for the other party to take advantage of her. He went straight to the 7th level of the fire domain and took out his cauldron to collect the 5 colored flames. The terrifying fire energy flowed into the cauldron like a stream or river. He was about to leave, so he wanted to prepare some life-saving measures. He didn't refine the cauldron, just put it in. Even if he put it in the sea of reincarnation, it would not cause him any harm. In the end, the 5 colored flames filled the cauldron completely. There was no more space left. The myriad source chi sealed the cauldron and Yi Fan stored it in his body. When he was far away from the fiery domain, Yi Fan took a deep look before rushing towards the north. A few days later, Yi Fan received a piece of news that made him pleasantly surprised. Now, the northern region was in constant turmoil because of the origin. Many cultivators in the southern region wanted to try their luck. The Yaoguang Holy Land and the Ji family had already sent their experts to the northern region half a year ago. They stood in the world and were unfathomable. Once the realm gate opened, they could directly cross to the northern region. However, it was more troublesome for loose cultivators. They would have to fly for at least a few years to get to the northern region. Thus, most people could only think of other ways. For example, they could pay a high price and borrow the way to the northern region. Half a month later, Yi Fan arrived at the Xiaoyao sect. Legend had it that this place was formed by the convergence of 2 dragon veins. There were many mountain peaks that looked like dragon bones. There were many strange trees and grass, majestic and beautiful. In this area, it was a superpower second only to the Holy Land, on par with the Supreme Mystery Sect. Now that it had entered its heyday, the sect had many experts. Yi Fan came here to smuggle in. According to what he knew, as long as he paid a high price, he could use their space gate to cross the void. Thousands of people were waiting outside the mountain gate. "Brother, you're so young, yet you want to go to the northern region to try your luck?" A burly man with a full beard asked. "Yes, I want to give it a try," Yi Fan replied. "The journey is long, and the northern region is full of dangers. It's best if you don't take risks at such a young age." An elder who was as thin as firewood advised. There were men and women among them, and it was hard to tell their cultivation levels. The mountain gate opened wide and a few cultivators walked out. The one in the lead was a middle-aged man with a sallow complexion and an erratic gait. "I say, everyone, you're really lucky. This might be the last time." Because, after the sect master came out of seclusion and found out about all this, he was very unhappy. The crowd suddenly burst into discussion. Many people were very glad. The crowd stepped forward one after another. Without needing the yellow-faced man to say anything, they all presented their treasures. It was impossible to cross the void without paying a high price. A weapon of a life spring stage cultivator, how can you take it out? The yellow-faced man glanced at the first cultivator with disdain and directly rejected the first cultivator. "Senior, please make an exception." The cultivator pleaded again and again. "This is a weapon I've refined for more than 10 years. It's already the most precious item I have on me. It's useless even if you've refined it for 100 years. Not to mention you, even if it's a weapon refined by a Nirvana realm cultivator, if it's an ordinary item, we won't accept it either." The yellow-faced man showed a look of disdain. The cultivator was very unwilling, but he didn't dare to say anything more and left unhappily. The second cultivator presented a bronze mirror. It was full of ancient aura, but there were some flaws. There were 3 cracks on it. "We don't accept this kind of inferior item." This is a weapon refined by a peak Taoist palace cultivator. It's extremely powerful. The cultivator carefully explained. No matter how good a weapon is, it's useless if there's a fatal crack. Even if it's nurtured for 100 years, it won't recover. The yellow-faced man showed an impatient expression. He waved his hand and let the cultivator leave. 1 crimson moon fruit. The third cultivator came forward and presented a jade box. After opening it, there was a bright red fruit in the shape of a crescent moon. It was crystal clear and had a fragrant aroma. The yellow-faced man's eyes showed a hint of greed. He closed the jade box and said, "A rare spirit fruit you can pass." 1 purple copper essence. After a few people failed, the 9th person presented a piece of purple copper with spots of light shining on it. It really is purple copper essence. A legend who has cultivated to the 3rd secret realm needs this kind of material the most. You can pass. The yellow-faced man's eyes were burning with passion. He reluctantly handed the copper essence to the person next to him and let the cultivator pass. If one wanted to pass here, they had to pay a great price. Most of the treasures and spirit medicines offered were not accepted. It's not like we can go straight to the North region, but they still have to pay such a high price. The people who couldn't pass were very dissatisfied and discussed on the side. Apart from the Holy Lands, no other sect could directly cross to the North region. Even so, there were still many wandering cultivators who came here to pass. When it was Yi Fan's turn, he took out a piece of godly metal that looked like white jade. It was only the size of a longan fruit. The yellow-faced man immediately jumped up in shock. His eyes were filled with greed as he said with a trembling voice, Could this be the legendary godly metal?" The small piece of metal was as white as jade, attracting many people's attention. The yellow-faced man held it in his hand and looked at it repeatedly. In the end he sighed and said, "What a pity it's been destroyed. The spirit is gone. What a waste." "Senior, is this metal valuable enough?" Yi Fan asked. This was the godly metal that Crow Taoist priest had destroyed. Even though he didn't enter the 8th level of the fire domain, he took out his own cauldron, and with great effort, he took out the snow-white metal. After careful observation, he felt that it was indeed destroyed. The essence inside was almost dried up, and it was no longer an exceptional treasure. "Do you still have this kind of godly metal?" the yellow-faced man asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan shook his head and said, "How could I have this kind of godly metal? I obtained this by chance in an ancient cave." The yellow-faced man felt that it was a great pity. His waxy yellow face was gloomy and uncertain as he said, "Even though it's destroyed, it's still a treasure. If it's refined by a renowned elder, it can improve the quality. You pass." An hour later, it was completely over. Out of more than 1,000 wandering cultivators, only 400 or so were left. They all paid a sky-high price. "Come back here in 3 days. We won't wait for you later." The yellow-faced man had them leave their mark. After saying this, he stood up and walked towards the mountain gate. Crossing the void wasn't an easy task. One had to carefully engrave Dao patterns without the slightest flaw. Otherwise there might be an accident. With so many wandering cultivators here, the carefree sect didn't dare to be careless. Every time, they would spend several days preparing. "Brother Huang, how have you been?" A few people descended from the sky. The yellow-faced man was surnamed Huang, which matched his complexion quite well. He turned around and smiled. "So it's the elites of the Ji clan. Are you here to check again?" "How are we elites? We're just running errands." One of the youths walked up and said, "We're following orders. We have no choice." The yellow-faced man was full of smiles and said politely, "This time, everyone who wants to cross the void is here. There are definitely no great demons. If you don't believe me, come and see for yourself." During these past few months, the Ji clan had swept through the southern region in anger. They couldn't catch the Peacock King and the Crow Taoist, so they had already killed dozens of great demons. "Brother Huang, don't misunderstand. We're just taking a stroll." Even the Ji clan didn't want to offend a great power like the carefree sect. The youths from the Ji clan glanced over the hundreds of people and didn't find any demonic energy. They clasped their hands and left. Yi Fan was already prepared to fight. Seeing this, he let out a sigh of relief. Then the crowd dispersed. Yi Fan didn't walk very fast. He didn't want to meet the people from the Ji clan. Friend, please wait. Just as he was 10 miles away, he heard a voice from behind. The yellow-faced man was chasing after him with a fake smile on his face. What's the matter, senior? Yi Fan asked without batting an eyelid. Friend, you really don't have those mutton-fat jade-like metal pieces? The yellow-faced man stared at him. I only found one piece in the ancient cave. You're right. With your cultivation level, you can't get such a rare item. The yellow-faced man nodded and said, Take me to that cave. Yi Fan instantly frowned and said, That cave is too far away. Even if I fly for a few days, I won't be able to get there. I can't do that. The yellow-faced man's face darkened. He said, I'm just asking you to lead the way. Don't you want to go to the northern region? This was a despicable person who didn't even try to hide his threat. In 3 days, we're going to cross the space. If I take you there, I'll definitely miss the opportunity. Yi Fan calmly replied. If you take me there, there'll be another chance. Yi Fan despised him. This was obviously the last chance. This guy was really shameless. Seeing that Yi Fan didn't say anything, the yellow-faced man's face darkened. He said, That kind of godly metal is very important to me. You have to take me there today. I really can't split myself up. Yi Fan refused. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. The yellow-faced man said coldly, Don't force me to fight. Yi Fan had been hiding his divine power and only showed it at the Life Spring realm. He sensed that the other should be at the peak of the Nirvana realm. He nodded and said, Okay, I'll lead the way. Then he flew forward. The yellow-faced man put away his murderous intent and nodded in satisfaction. He revealed a fake smile and said, That's right. I won't treat you badly. Seeing that there was no one around, Yi Fan flew forward for another 10 miles and stood in the air. Why did you stop? The yellow-faced man's expression was unfriendly and his murderous intent surfaced again. To send you on your way. Yi Fan answered. The incomplete form of the Grand Palm of the Void appeared. The black hand covered the space and came crashing down. Pow! The yellow-faced man was smashed into pieces in the air. He didn't even have the chance to make a sound. Yi Fan didn't want to waste time with such a despicable person. He would just kill him with one slap. In the distant sky, many people's expressions changed. They were the young disciples of the Ji clan who had left not long ago. They immediately exclaimed, The fluctuation of the Grand Palm of the Void. No, it's not the authentic Grand Palm of the Void. The power is chaotic. 3 days later, Yi Fan came back to the Xiaoyao sect and entered the sect with hundreds of people. 2 dragon veins intersected. Strange peaks stood side by side. It was majestic and beautiful. Hundreds of people were led into a valley. It was a spacious place and there was a huge altar. It was the place to open the space gate. Everyone, I wish you all a safe journey. An elder of the Xiaoyao sect said loudly. Hundreds of people climbed onto the altar and were about to open the space gate and cross the sky. Yi Fan let out a long sigh. He was finally going to leave the southern mountain range and get rid of all his troubles. Wait. At this moment, a shout came from outside the Xiaoyao sect. Dozens of people quickly flew over. The space gate didn't open, so they arrived in the blink of an eye. Most of them were old people. They all looked hale and hearty and emitted an aura that made people's hearts pound. Their life force was as strong as the ocean. They were definitely not ordinary experts. Next to them were a few elders of the Xiaoyao sect. They flew over together. Everyone, please forgive us. These people were very polite and didn't put on airs. They clasped their hands to everyone and apologized to the elders of the Xiaoyao sect. Yi Fan's face turned green. The people of the Ji clan had arrived. There were more than 20 old people. He even saw someone he knew. Ji Hui. Of course, what shocked Yi Fan the most was the old man in the middle. He looked as empty as an abyss and as deep as the ocean. He was unfathomable. Don't tell me he's an important person? Yi Fan had a bad feeling. Are you Senior Ji Chongkong? Asked a famous elder of the Xiaoyao sect. He looked at the old man in the middle of the Ji clan with a confused expression. That's me. The people of the Xiaoyao sect were shocked. One of them said, I heard that Senior Ji Chongkong has been in seclusion for dozens of years. I didn't expect you to come out again and visit the Xiaoyao sect. I'll go report to the sect leader. The old man in the middle apologized again and explained, "There's no need for that. We'll leave immediately." The Ji clan had found traces of the Crow Taoist. Not only did the Ji clan's holy leader personally come out, but they also sent 6 supreme elders to kill the old Taoist. Ji Chongkong was one of the grand elders. When they passed by this place, they received a report that an unknown cultivator was using the incomplete Grand Void Palm imprint. This made the people of the Ji clan have a bad feeling. They suspected that Yi Fan had taught the Great Void Palm to the Peacock King and the other Yao clan cultivators. When they heard this, they stopped to take a look. When the Xiao Yao sect opened the space gate, they immediately thought of many things and rushed over. "We're just going to take a look. We'll leave immediately." The supreme elder of the Ji clan's gaze was like lightning as he personally scanned the crowd. Yi Fan cursed in his heart. How was he going to escape from the Xiao Yao sect? There were restrictions everywhere, and the people of the Ji clan were blocking the way. His heart turned cold. Chapter 170. Ji Hui's eyes swept over the cultivators. When she saw Yi Fan, she screamed in fear. "It's you! How is this possible? You damned old woman, how can your eyes be so sharp?" Yi Fan walked out helplessly. He was trapped in the carefree school. You're still alive?" Ji Hui's face was full of disbelief. "You're not dead yet, how could I have fallen?" Yi Fan was unwilling to accept this. He had survived so many disasters, avoided so many dangers, and in the end, just as he was about to leave, he encountered a great tragedy. "Mother Fastris Kerr, I've kowtowed 99 times. Only this last one is left. How did I meet you?" Yi Fan asked the heavens. "It's him, it's that little thief." How surprising, he fell into the 6th realm of fire and didn't burn to death. Now he's alive and kicking. The elders of the Ji clan were astonished. They didn't think they would see Yi Fan again. A young man who they thought had turned to ashes a long time ago was alive and kicking before them. "Little bastard, how did you survive?" Ji Hui's eyes were filled with killing intent. "You shameless old thing. Call me young master and I'll tell you." Yi Fan didn't have anything to be afraid of anymore. Everyone in the surroundings knew Yi Fan's identity, and they all revealed strange expressions. Half a year ago, Yi Fan's name spread across the entire region. He shouted and told the elders of the Ji clan to scram. He became the public enemy of the Ji clan and they chased him everywhere. But in the end, they couldn't kill him and only chased him into the fire realm. Who would have thought that after half a year, he would come back alive and kicking? This was a slap in the Ji clan's face. Not only did they fail to kill the Peacock King, but they also failed to kill a young man like him. How could the Ji clan accept this? Everyone was in an uproar. They were all tongue-tied. Crash! The hundreds of cultivators on the altar retreated, leaving only Yi Fan standing there. He couldn't cross the sky anymore. The people of the Xiao Yao sect looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. One of them hurried to report to the sect leader and the Grand Elder. The faces of everyone from the Ji clan darkened. "Little bastard, you're really lucky. Even the fire realm can't take your life." Ji Hui pressed forward, and the others surrounded him. There was no way they would let him leave. "You greedy and snobbish old man." Yi Fan pondered in his heart. He would not give up until the last moment. No wonder Purple Moon isn't angry these days. She must know that you're not dead. Ji Hui's expression became more unsightly. "Do you want to know why I didn't die?" Yi Fan scanned the crowd. Everyone looked at him. Even the great elder of the Ji family was no exception. He had only become the great elder of the Ji family 30 years ago. Even he had to be extra careful when entering the 6th layer of the fire realm. "I was saved by a powerful being from the fire field. He was once taught by my crazy old brother," Yi Fan boasted shamelessly. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Many people knew that he practiced the crazy old man's movement technique. The people of the Ji family understood that he wanted to use the crazy old man's name to save his life. "Little bastard, no matter who you mention, it's useless." Ji Hui's expression was cold. "You're an old man who's completely crazy. Even if you're an immortal, what can you do? Today, I'll cut you into pieces." "Everyone, you heard her. She's insulting the last remaining crazy old man in the heavenly Jade Holy Land." Yi Fan shouted. The great elder of the Ji family seemed to be worried. He glanced at Jihui and said, "Don't talk nonsense. He's already crazy. What can he do to us? Today, we'll kill this little bastard, search his soul, and find that movement technique. Our Ji family will have another supreme secret technique," Jihui muttered to herself. Yi Fan was very close to her. The others couldn't hear, but he did. He said, "Not only did you bite the hand that fed you, you even want to steal my secret technique. You old woman, you're really shameless. Little bastard." Ji Hui's expression was livid. She slapped forward. Yi Fan didn't take out his cauldron. If he exposed himself too early, he wouldn't have any hope. Swoosh. No matter how fast he was, there was no way he could evade the giant hand that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. There was no way to avoid it. Bang! The big hand slapped down, and the whole family sent him flying. If it weren't for his recent increase in cultivation and his terrifying physique, he would have been smashed to pieces. Little bastard, I won't kill you. I still need the crazy old man's supreme movement technique. I'll make you wish you were dead. Ji Hui's expression was cold. Her voice was so weak that other cultivators couldn't hear her. Bang! Ji Hui attacked again. Her giant hand covered the sky and pressed down. Yi Fan was still enduring. He didn't take out his cauldron and just dodged. Little bastard, I'm going to take care of you. Ji Hui smiled coldly and said, "Are you going to run again? Don't hurt his body." Just at this moment, the Ji family supreme elder, Ji Chongkong, stopped Ji Hui and said, "How you had told me before that this child's physique is very special. Don't destroy him. Let me take a closer look." Ji Chongkong was like a mountain, like an abyss. He was unfathomable. He stretched out his hand and pulled Yi Fan over. It was like picking a flower or a leaf. Yi Fan felt a chill in his heart. He didn't act rashly and continued to wait. Ji Chongkong didn't restrain Yi Fan. Someone as strong as him facing a Nirvana realm cultivator was like looking down on an ant. There was no need for him to care. He directly probed Yi Fan's sea of bitterness. The instant he touched it, his expression changed. He cried out, "How is this possible?" Everyone in the surroundings, be it the people of the Ji family, the legendary figures of the Xiaoyao sect, or the cultivators preparing to cross the void, all revealed shocked expressions as they looked at Ji Chongkong and Yi Fan. What kind of physique could make the Ji family supreme elder lose his composure like this? Everyone was shocked and wanted to know. This little bastard is really a monster. Ji Chongkong was extremely shocked. His face was filled with shock. He said, "If we had offended this evil creature before the desolate antiquity, our Ji family would have been in big trouble. However, now, he won't be able to do anything." "What kind of physique does he have?" a legendary figure of the Ji family asked. "It is the sacred body of the desolate antiquity recorded in the ancient books. Countless years ago, this physique was unparalleled. No one in the world could match it. Even the ancient desolate tower had to suppress it for many years before it could kill it." Ji Chongkong sighed and said, "I didn't expect this evil creature to have such a physique. This is really shocking." Everyone was shocked. They did not expect Yi Fan to have such a physique. However, everyone quickly understood. The sacred body was already a thing of the past. Now, it was just another name for a trash physique. The Eastern desolate divine body had risen. "This evil creature has exceeded my expectations." The Ji family's supreme elder revealed a strange expression. He said, "He was able to cultivate to the Paramitha realm. He is really not simple. If we take his origin energy back, we should be able to raise Hao Yue's divine body to the next level." Ji Chongkong kept calling him evil creature, causing Yi Fan to feel angry in his heart. He really wanted to slap Ji Chongkong's old face. The expressions of the surrounding people changed. Only the people of the Ji family rejoiced. "This evil creature's physical body is so strong. This is really shocking." After Ji Chongkong checked Yi Fan's physique, his face was filled with shock. He said, "There seems to be a treasure in his sea of reincarnation. Let me see what it is." Yi Fan smiled coldly in his heart. He did not move, allowing this old antique to do whatever he wanted. Ji Chongkong stretched out his 5 fingers like a dragon claw. Instantly, there was a burst of light, releasing a strange mighty force that could not be resisted. Yi Fan did not resist. Instead, he cooperated and took out the cauldron. The small cauldron silently appeared in the air. Ji Chongkong grabbed it and cried out involuntarily. He was even more shocked than before. Mist shrouded the cauldron. Heaven and earth flowed and sealed the mouth of the cauldron. Myriad Source Qi. No, it's the Myriad Source Qi's origin root. Even someone as powerful as him lost control of his mind. This kind of legendary sacred object had always only appeared in ancient myths and legends. It made him excited to the extreme. Unexpectedly, this evil creature actually obtained a sacred item. Haha. Ji Chongkong could not control his emotions. He faced the sky and laughed loudly. The surrounding people were deeply shocked. They all stared at the cauldron. The many legendary figures of the Ji clan surrounded it and sized it up together. All of them wanted to touch it personally. Ji Chongkong wanted to take a closer look at this cauldron. He wanted the myriad source qi to flow and not block the mouth of the cauldron. At this moment, Yi Fan also moved. He activated the cauldron and removed the myriad source qi seal. Boom! Just at this moment, a tsunami-like sound resounded. Boundless piercing light drowned out the place. A blazing temperature caused the souls of the cultivators in the distance to tremble. They all retreated in shock. Even so, there were still some cultivators who were turned into ashes. At this moment, the center of the place was resplendent. A five-colored light soared into the sky. It was like the door to the celestial realm had been opened. Five-colored clouds surged and enveloped the entire place. This was an unimaginably horrifying energy. The five-colored light became the only thing in the world, burning fiercely. Yi Fan had collected an unknown amount of fire energy in the seventh layer of the fire domain. The cauldron could be big or small. It could contain a large stone forest. The size of the space was astounding. At this moment, it was filled with five-colored flames. Not a single bit of space was wasted. Releasing all the flames was simply a huge disaster. One had to know that this was a horrifying fire energy that could even burn major characters to death. The Ji clan's supreme elder, Ji Chongkong, let out a miserable shriek. He turned into a flaming person. He soared into the sky and struggled continuously. More than 10 of the Ji clan's legendary figures were turned into ashes on the spot. They could not even struggle. I want to play big. Yi Fan's eyes released a divine radiance. He grabbed the pristine jade bottle and poured the deity spring water into his mouth. He frantically activated the cauldron and attacked Ji Chongkong with the boundless raging flames. Bang! The Ji clan's important character could block the attack of the cauldron, but he could not block the raging flames. The five-colored flames were gathered by the cauldron and concentrated on him, completely submerging him. He had only been the Ji clan's supreme elder for 30 years. It could be said that he was the weakest important character in the Ji clan. The purple flames of the sixth layer of the fire domain could already threaten the life and death of important characters. Yi Fan saw with his own eyes that there were many human-shaped ashes there. There was no need to even mention the flames of the seventh layer. They were definitely fatal. Unfortunately, after Ji Chongkong was enveloped by the five-colored flames, even someone as strong as him let out a heart-wrenching cry. It was impossible to extinguish the flames. His divine power was completely ignited. His entire body was covered in flames. Every inch of his skin was charred. His bones were all burned and his soul was extinguished. Ah! He let out a mournful howl and said, "This is the legendary five-elemental true fire." Hearing this name, many of the cultivators in the distance shivered. The scariness of the five-elemental true fire was unimaginable. As long as one was within the range of the five elements, they would be burned to ashes. There was no way to extinguish it. There was no way to resist it. Ah! Ji Chongkong turned into a piece of charcoal and fell to the ground, rolling continuously. As for the other famous figures of the Ji clan, most of them turned into ashes. Only a few people were further away and escaped this calamity. There were even a few people who had half their bodies burned. The five-elemental true fire could not extinguish them. In order to survive, they clenched their teeth and cut off half of their bodies, rolling in the distance. Everyone was horrified. This was too horrifying. At the same time, they were incomparably shocked. Yi Fan was just a youth and his cultivation was not that terrifying. He actually wanted to burn the Ji clan's supreme elder alive. This would definitely shake the entire southern region. Yi Fan shouted loudly. First there was the Peacock King, then there was the Crow Taoist. Today, I will join in as well. He drank large mouthfuls of divine spring water and continuously activated the cauldron. All the flames gathered towards Ji Chongkong. Not far away, the lower half of Ji Hui's body was completely charred. She clenched her teeth and cut it off. Her divine power was almost completely burned away, but she managed to preserve her life. You damned old hag, to think that you would have such a day. Yi Fan was about to go forward. The other famous figures of the Ji clan who had escaped this calamity hurriedly made a move and pulled Ji Hui far away. At the same time, a loud shout came from the distant sky. Who dares to cause trouble in my Xiao Yao sect? The Xiao Yao sect leader and supreme elder were alarmed. Yi Fan looked at Ji Chongkong and saw that he had turned into charcoal. Even his soul was about to be extinguished. He knew that even if an immortal descended, he would not be able to save this important figure. He used a peerless footwork and arrived in front of the altar in an instant. He placed a large amount of origin energy into the altar. The Tao patterns were already carved. As long as there was energy from the origin energy, it would open. Yi Fan soared into the sky and stood at the center of the altar. Boundless energy waves spread out and divine light rushed into the sky. The realm gate opened and the space was torn apart. Yi Fan rushed in and began to cross the empty space. When the sect leader of the unfettered society arrived and saw what was happening, his mind began to spin. This was a monumental event. He felt a headache coming on. More than 10 famous figures of the Ji clan had been burned to ashes. An important figure had been burned alive. This would definitely shock the southern domain. The Ji clan would definitely go crazy. In less than a year, 3 supreme elders had died. The southern domain would definitely be in a state of shock. Quick! Destroy the altar. We cannot let him escape. Someone shouted. Immediately, rays of light rushed towards the altar. With a loud rumble, the altar collapsed and turned into dust. The empty space was destroyed, but no one fell out. We delayed for a while. I'm afraid he's already tens of thousands of miles away. The empty space is destroyed. With his cultivation, he will most likely be turned into dust. Yi Fan was prepared. The moment he stepped into the empty space, he entered his cauldron. He had expected this to happen. Therefore, when the empty space was destroyed, he was safe and sound inside the cauldron made from the origin energy of all living beings. This despicable little bastard. The surviving legendary figures of the Ji clan raised their heads to the sky and shouted. This matter would definitely shake the southern domain and spread throughout the world. Without a doubt, a storm was brewing. Chapter 171. Traveling through space was very dangerous. Once an accident happened, one's body could be crushed to pieces. If Yi Fan hadn't been prepared, it would have been difficult for him to escape. He hid inside the cauldron. The moment the space collapsed, his heart palpitated. This destructive power was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, like snow burying flowers. For life, this was an unstoppable force. Space was annihilated and the physical body couldn't resist it. It destroyed everything and destroyed endless life force. It was as if it wanted to push the world back to its starting point. The source energy of all things flowed. The cauldron didn't move at all. In this destructive wave, the cauldron was like a boat carrying Yi Fan. It smashed through a precipice and stopped. When the dust settled and the world became clear again, Yi Fan escaped from the cauldron. Before him was a scene of desolation. The mountains had been destroyed and turned into scorched earth. All life was gone and nothing was left. As expected, you are ruthless. You didn't hesitate to destroy the realm gate. You want me to disappear in space? Then, Yi Fan raised his head and laughed. The depression of the past half a year was swept away. He had been chased by the Ji family until he had nowhere to go and nowhere to go. He hid in the fire area and didn't dare to show his face. Now that he had attacked, all his anger had been resolved. He had burned an important figure alive. Even he couldn't believe it. Turning more than 10 famous figures into ashes was like a dream. Even if the Ji family finds me, I won't be able to escape death. It was worth it. Speaking of this, Yi Fan calmed down and said, I won't die. I have to find a way to escape this area. He didn't dare to tarry. He turned into a shadow and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The commotion here was too big and would definitely attract attention. It was best to leave as soon as possible. Yi Fan felt that it would be difficult to leave the southern region. Right now, there was no way to go to the northern region. He wanted to go in the opposite direction and head south. The southern region was vast and had countless countries. The Ji family, Taixuan, Yaoguang, and Xiaoyao were only a small part of this area. If one went further south, it was said that there were 1 or 2 holy lands. Even though they were all in the southern region, the distance was too far. If one flew, it would take around half a year to arrive. One could imagine how vast the southern region was, not to mention the entire eastern wilderness. If there were no realm gates to send messages, and if they couldn't travel through the void, there would be no way for them to communicate with each other. They would all be separated, and it would be difficult for them to interact. Soon, Yi Fan found out that he was now 30,000 miles away from the Xiaoyao sect. He had traveled such a great distance in just a few minutes, which shocked him. However, what surprised him the most was that he had arrived at the area where the Yaoguang Holy Land was located, which was more than 1,000 miles away. Maybe I can hide here and not go anywhere else. Yi Fan pondered. Ji Changkong's death shook the entire region. Everyone was shocked. In less than a year, 3 grand elders of the Ji family had died in battle. It was comparable to a raging sea, a violent storm. This wasn't the Dark Age in ancient history. There weren't any terrifying upheavals, but the important figures of the Ji family were dying one after another. It was truly shocking. Forget about the Peacock King and the Crow Taoist. Thousands of years ago, with just a stomp of their feet, the entire southern region would be shaken. However, where did this youth, Yi Fan, come from? He actually did such a shocking thing, killing the grand elders of the Ji family. This was unbelievable. All the cultivators in this region were shocked. This was a huge matter. The anger of the Ji family would probably spread throughout the world. Ji Changkong was burned to death. It was done by a youth who only cultivated the Sea of Reincarnation's secret realm. The grand elder of the Ji family was burned to death. The person who did this was a 14 or 15-year-old cultivator, but he caused the death of an important figure. This is unbelievable. Ji Changkong, who had dominated the southern region for so many years, was burned to death by a youth called Yi Fan, turning into ashes. This is simply a fantasy. An important figure of the Ji family was burned to death. His reputation turned to dust. Everyone was discussing. The news spread throughout the region. Everyone felt that it was inconceivable. Of course, most of them were shocked. The 5 elemental true fire could burn everything. As long as one was within the 5 elements, there was no power that could resist it. Many cultivators were terrified. Ji Changkong dying to the 5-colored flame could only be said to be fate. Even an important figure would find it hard to resist such a flame and turn to ashes. Yi Fan having a special characteristic was no longer a secret. This matter spread out and caused him endless trouble. Not only the Ji family, even the Holy Land would be looking for him. Of course, this wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was that the source of the qi of all things would be exposed. This was a treasure that many cultivators coveted. Right now, he was only at the Nirvana realm. It was impossible for him to be like the Peacock King, sweeping across the land and looking down on the southern region. Him having such a cauldron was a great disaster. Although he burned the supreme elder of the Ji family to death and shocked the southern region, after people understood the details, they found out that it wasn't his own power. He relied on the 5 elemental true fire. Yi Fan had a treasure on him, but his cultivation wasn't that high. Naturally, many people coveted him. Many people were preparing to take action and search for his whereabouts. Kill. This was the order from the Ji family to kill. For a small cultivator, this had never happened in thousands of years. If other forces wanted to search for Yi Fan, they could only act in secret. Now, no one dared to anger the Ji family. At this critical moment, whoever touched them would die without a burial. This region was in great turmoil, great waves surging. Yi Fan didn't go south. He hid in a mountain range 1,000 miles away from the Yaoguang Holy Land. He thought that the Ji family wouldn't come here to search for him. After all, this was the doorstep of the Yaoguang Holy Land. He was wrong. The Ji family was unfathomable. They had unimaginable knowledge about opening the realm gate, carving the Tao patterns, and traveling through the void. Based on the broken altar, the consumed energy, and the time when the realm gate was opened, they were able to guess how many miles Yi Fan had traveled. On that day, the void was opened. The realm gate appeared above the scorched land. More than 100 cultivators walked out. Among them, there were more than 20 elders, and the rest were young elites. Some were as calm as mountains. Their auras were heavy and unfathomable. Some were like sharp swords. They were full of murderous intent. More than 100 cultivators were all-powerful. Not to mention those famous figures, even those young cultivators had great backgrounds. Almost half of the 10 strongest young cultivators of the Ji family were here. This scorched land must have been caused by the shattering of the void. That bastard didn't die. An elder gave an order. He told everyone to spread out and search. If they found any clues, they were to report it immediately. This was only the first group of people. There were more cultivators coming. If the Crow Daoist didn't show up to provoke the Ji family, there would have been powerful figures coming to kill Yi Fan. The Ji family was powerful. They sent out messages and locked down all the places. They wanted to trap Yi Fan in this area. Yi Fan didn't think that he would see the people of the Ji family flying above the mountains in the middle of the night. How did they find this place? Of course, he didn't know that the Ji family had calculated everything using the realm gate. Yi Fan felt that something was wrong. He flew through the night, but he was shocked to find out that the Ji family had locked down this area. A large number of cultivators were searching for him. 2 days later, Yi Fan's whereabouts were exposed. He was discovered by the Ji family. The clan of the ancients sure is unfathomable. They can even calculate where the void collapsed. Yi Fan exclaimed. He wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be in even more danger if he alerted the wavering light's sacred ground. If it weren't for his supreme movement technique, he wouldn't have been able to survive after being discovered. Even so, he couldn't get rid of them. 5 days later, he took a roundabout route and entered a grassland. He was thousands of miles away from the wavering light's sacred ground. The people of the Ji family seemed to have locked onto him. They chased him all the way and couldn't get rid of him. On the 6th day, he finally encountered the young disciples of the Ji family. After a bloody battle, he used the cauldron to kill his way out. On the 8th day, in the depths of the grassland, a tall man blocked his way. This man looked to be in his 20s. His hair was as black as ink, and his eyes were as sharp as knives. His skin was bronze in color, his body was strong, and his aura was heavy. Who are you? Since he dared to chase him alone, he must have something special about him. Yi Fan didn't dare to underestimate him. Ji Haiyue. The tall man's voice was powerful like a bell. Never heard of you. That's because you don't know much. Behind him, more than 10 people walked out from the dense grassland. In the young generation of the Ji family, there are 3 people who have cultivated to the 3rd secret realm. 5th brother Haiyue is one of them. Yi Fan's heart jumped. Even the legendary figures had only cultivated to the 3rd secret realm. Those who had this level of cultivation in the young generation were all extraordinary figures. In the southern region, they could be counted on one hand. As far as he knew, there were only a dozen people in this area. The Ji family had 3, and the Wavering Light Sacred Ground had around 3 as well. There were also Hua Yunfei, Li Yuyu, and a few others. Your 5 elemental true fire has been used up. You don't have anything else to rely on. Let's see how you escape. Ji Haiyue was tall and strong. His eyes were as sharp as lightning as he blocked in front of him. The corner of Yi Fan's mouth curled up and he revealed a smile. He directly flew into the sky. He didn't want to fight them head-on. He wasn't surrounded, so there was no need to fight. However, when he flew into the sky, Yi Fan felt a gray haze. A strange power trapped him and forced him back to the ground. He knew that he was in trouble. This place had been set up by someone. They had carved Dao patterns and condensed the power of the earth veins to lock him here. Ji Haiyue sneered. Don't waste your energy. The moment you stepped into this place, you were destined to die. As he said this, he took a step forward. However, he didn't continue to press forward. The Ji family's supreme elder had learned a lesson. Everyone was fearful. A large flag rushed out of Ji Haiyue's body and appeared in the sky. It was as black as ink and misty. It seemed to have a demonic nature that wanted to suck one's mind in. A heavenly laughter entered Yi Fan's ears. Someone secretly transmitted their voice to him. Little brother Yi, do you need my help? Yi Fan immediately frowned. This was the voice of the Wavering Light Saintess. In the end, she had still attracted the wavering light's sacred ground. If you want to help me, kill this Ji Haiyue first. Yi Fan replied. That's easy for you to say. He's only second to Ji Haiyue and Ji Biyue. Before Ji Ziyue grew up, he was the third strongest in the younger generation of the Ji family. The saintess' voice was sweet. No one knew where she was. She said, if I kill him, I will have great karma with the Ji family. However, I have other ways to take you away. Don't you want to go to the northern region? I have the same intention. We can travel together. Sure, I'd be happy to, Yi Fan replied. In such a situation, someone was willing to help him. Although he knew that the saintess was not to be trifled with, he had to get through this hurdle first. The saintess' laughter was like a silver bell, making people feel like a spring breeze. Her words were very soft. She said, I need to prepare. You can stop Ji Haiyue first.